Right, now we're good. Let's get everything underway. And it's a little bit of a different stage to what was supposed to be the case today. It was a short stage to begin with, and the Tour de France organisers have made it even shorter. So this is what it looks like, 94.9 kilometers total, and it gets underway in just over 20 minutes time. I'm just going to turn the race radio on so I actually know what is going on. So, this is what the stage looks like. We start in Albertville and we head up to the finish in La Plagne. And we head up to the finish in La Plagne. The finish line is the same, the start is slightly different, and we have cut the route, both in altitude meters and in kilometers total. Here was the original idea, starting on the category 2 Côte d'Ery-sur-Eugène, and then going on to the Col de Cèze, which is the main argument of the day, of why the day has been reduced. Because the cows, let's just have a brief moment for the cows, who are going through a mass slaughter on the Col de Cèze because an outbreak of disease has spread on the farms on this particular climb. So, because A, they don't want cow culling to be on television, and B, because the farmers are probably going to use the Tour de France to protest, they've skipped the Col de Cèze out entirely. And here is what it looks like now. Wabahow. 93.1 kilometers, starting in Albertville, ending in La Plagne, 12.1 kilometers to the sprint compared to what it was before, 8. So a little more work for Lidl Trek to do to control the early part of the race, but I'm sure they will do that. And then just the Col du Pré, or category, 12.6 kilometers, 7.7%. Then the category 2 Cormet de Roseland up to just under 2,000 meters altitude, 5.8 kilometers, 6.5%, and ending on La Plagne, which is a very difficult climb. Or category, 7.2% average for a total of 19.1 kilometers. It is a true test of the legs up to La Plagne. So, that is what the profile looks like now, and it is going to be hard racing from the start. Admittedly, the start will be after 12.1 kilometers if yesterday's stage was anything to go by, but I am very eager to watch this one unfold. And it starts in 15 minutes time, just over that. I might as well change my fantasy team while I'm here. I actually don't know who my captain is today. Let's just check whether that one is... Vingegaard was my captain yesterday. Pogacar is going to be my captain today. I'm sorry, Jonas. But that says a lot about what I am going to be cooking up for my predictions. But first, let's talk about yesterday, because it was a big stage win for Ben O'Connor and yet more time gained by Tadej Pogacar, who just rolls to the front to have his pictures and all of that taken. The rollout starts imminently. Florian Lipowitz to his right. Pogacar, right now, at the end of yesterday's stage, with the time gain on Jonas Vingegaard, said, "I wanted the stage win, but the priority, of course, is the yellow jersey. When Visma Lease-A-Bike went on the Col de la Madeleine, I was like, yeah, we can go for the stage as well. They went a bit too hard, and on the downhill they went so fast. In the end, it was a small group, and they started to attack each other. There was no cooperation in the valley. I was waiting for my teammates to come back, but they took a long time to come back. In the end, when we started when we came to the bottom of the climb, I was thinking when Visma started to pull that they would go faster and try to bring the breakaway back. I think Ben O'Connor was incredibly strong today for the whole day. Also, on the final climb, I think he pulled it off quite well and the stage win slipped away. I'm happy though that I had good legs on the Col de la Loze and I'm in yellow. Today was the Queen stage. Was I ever a king? I don't think so. On the climbs, I felt good when the pace was high. It's a great day for us. In the end, we lost the victory, but we succeeded with the main goal. We showed how strong we are as a team as well. I'm super happy with how we rode and how we finished the day. I stopped believing in the stage win though the moment the trio went in the valley. I was like, okay, that's a pretty big chance that they just go to the line. I was a bit like, whatever, no. I just focused on the jersey from then on. Florian Lipowitz attacked. That was a brave move from him, but I was not worried because my guys were also coming, so we have enough of a gap to control him. When we were looking at each other in the valley, there was a moment to recover and get ready for the final climb. Visma did really good, massive respect for trying early. Maybe they went too hard on the downhills and then it didn't work out on the final climb. They tried everything though on the Col de la Madeleine. They also had Matteo Jorgensen in the front. It was really good, but I was prepared for them to try on the Queen stage. They always do something every year and they did a good job, but I'm happy that I could defend and follow. Then went on to say, Col de la Loze 2023 for me was a really bad moment. It certainly wasn't the best moment of my career. And on Eurosport, my radio message was played all the time on commercial breaks or whatever. For sure, we did good today. We made a mark on the yellow jersey today. So, he did have yesterday's Col de la Loze in mind and how he performed there in 2023 when Jonas Vingegaard caused that infamous "I'm gone, I'm dead" radio message, which does stick in his memory by the sounds of things. But I think now we can focus a little less on "I'm gone, I'm dead" and a little more on the win that he took yesterday. I haven't done GC just yet, thinking about it, but whatever. The winner, though, of the stage was not Tadej Pogacar. In the end, it went to the breakaway. Pogacar, of course, mentioned that he thought he'd lost the moment when the three riders went away in the valley, and those three were Matteo Jorgensen, Ina Rubio, and this man, Ben O'Connor, who at the end of yesterday's stage said, I felt much better today, it was pretty active. The point when I realised I had a shot was at the top of the Col de la Madeleine, when Jonas Vingegaard and Poggi came across. We were still with them over the top of the summit. It was the perfect opportunity to go in the valley, and this is a climb I actually have some good memories on. I rode for my teammate at the time, Felix Gall, to win on Col de la Loze, so it's pretty sweet to do it again. But this time, it's me putting my hands up in the air. It is a rough race, the Tour de France. It's the biggest race in the world, but for sure the cruelest. So I've wanted to have another victory for many years now. I've been fighting with thirds and fourths and been so close. I couldn't be more proud of myself and the boys. They backed me every single day throughout this whole race, even throughout the pretty rough times. So thanks to everyone at Jacob Alula. It's what the team and I needed. The valley was the perfect opportunity to get time. You're going to get smoked by Tadej Pogacar and Jonas if you stay there, so it's worth a shot. On the final climb, I was waiting for the steepest part, just before we entered the Courchevel centre. It was all about pacing and keeping on speed, just typical time trial stuff. It's what I do best, so it was nice to savour this one a little bit more than my last. Once Ina Rubio was gone, I didn't want to get rolled by the yellow jersey in those final 5 kilometres. That was all I cared about. When I heard it staying still at 3 minutes with 3 kilometres to go, I was safe. And it is so good to win. And what a win it was from Ben O'Connor, and certainly one person who was in my stream yesterday, making sure that I knew that Ben O'Connor was going to win. We'll be happy with that. You know who you are, if you are here at the moment. If not, then I'm sure he will be here later on to gloat in that victory of Ben O'Connor's. But the Grand Départ started already. That was stage 1. But the départ of this stage Albertville to La Plagne is just over 10 minutes away, and they've actually not got too long to go of the unofficial neutral rollout zone. I think Little Trek will control for the first 12 kilometres, to be honest with you, so it's not going to be a fascinating watch from early on, but breakaway formation should be entertaining, very much so, because the shortened stage benefits the breakaway, I think. If they can get a gap early on the Col de Pré, then perhaps they can go all the way. But Visma Lease-A-Bike, I fear, are going to launch things from the start. And I fear that Tadej Pogacar might be on the ropes. He'll have to be on it from early on in the stage. The shortened stage probably doesn't do Visma too many favours. But I'm not surprised, I won't be surprised at all if they light it up on the Col de Pré and just have one final throw of the dice, push all of the chips in, and gamble everything they've got to get Jonas Vingegaard into the yellow jersey. What a stage in prospect. And I cannot wait for it to begin. So, I better get my predictions out the way because there's 2.6 kilometres until the neutral rollout ends. Of course, we'll be looking for riders towards the front of the race. I think it will just be riders from Little Trek, but if it's not, then they are going to let the breakaway go, and that could be incredibly entertaining to watch. Pro Cycling Stats right now focusing on Oscar Onley against Florian Lipowitz as ITV, the feed that I'm watching, is showing Lenny Martinez's sticky bottle from yesterday. Again, we will get to that. So many talking points from yesterday's stage that we have to get through on a shortened stage today. But the Martinez sticky bottle was one narrative in a stage which kind of was a damp squib towards the end after all it promised early on with Visma Lease-A-Bike ripping it up the Col de la Madeleine. But the Col de la Loze didn't really deliver what I was expecting it to, especially after everything beforehand. But as of now, Pogacar gains more time on Jonas Vingegaard. But it wasn't a bad stage across the board. In terms of drama, it had plenty of narratives. Matteo Jorgensen's breakaway dynamics, Florian Lipowitz going on a solo move, Oscar Onley coming from the top rope from nowhere to reclaim his position in fourth on GC and actually move further in on Florian Lipowitz. And, of course, the stage winner Ben O'Connor timing his move to perfection, going up the road. Primoz Roglic and Felix Gall were in the breakaway, so I mean, what a stage. But the outcome wasn't that interesting, unfortunately. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. The start of the stage, I'd give sort of a 9. The end of the stage, I'd give more likely a sort of 4, 3.5. I liked that O'Connor won because I liked Ben O'Connor. However, yeah, the actual entertainment of the stage between Vingegaard and Pogacar wasn't delivering for me. But everybody is bunched together. There is less than 2 kilometres now until the rollout ends, which is about 5 minutes from now. So grab your popcorn, strap in, because it's going to be a very quick stage. Let's go through a couple more quotes then from yesterday before we start talking about everything that's happened, or everything that the riders expect to happen on La Plagne. We'll start with going through Visma's domestiques, and we'll begin with Simon Yates, who was finally starting to show himself towards the front after a relatively quiet domestique performance at this Tour de France. Took the stage win on stage 10, of course, but here's what he had to say at the end of yesterday's stage. We wanted to make it a hard race on the Col de la Madeleine, and that is exactly what we did. To be honest, it was quite confusing because the radios that we had were not very good today. So, you could argue that says a little bit about the Matteo Jorgensen move, if you're being cynical. I didn't know what was happening in the front coming into the final. We knew we were coming back to Jonas Vingegaard and his group. Matteo Jorgensen was up the road. It gave us a good option there in case we wanted to launch quite early, but in the end we just made a decent pace and held it down for as long as possible. However, Jonas Vingegaard could not deliver a stage win or take any time on Tadej Pogacar, which he's, I'm sure, planning to do on this stage. I mean, if he can't on this stage, then the tour is well and truly over, because a breakaway stage, I'm imagining, is what tomorrow is going to hold. And then you've got the stage into Paris, which, I mean, anything could happen on that stage, but you are not gaining around 4.5 minutes on Tadej Pogacar on that particular stage. So this is going to be Visma throwing the dice for one last time, hoping they get 2 6s and Tadej Pogacar rolls snake eyes, but the likelihood of that happening, incredibly unlikely. Sepp Kuss, though, had another good day in the saddle and is honestly looking like Visma Lease-A-Bike's best domestique at this Tour de France. You could argue it's a toss-up between Jorgensen and Kuss, because Jorgensen was so good so early on, but one American has fallen away, while the other American has thrived in this final week and a half. But Sepp Kuss said after the Col de la Loze, first of all, we wanted the right situation with the break and to have the right gap to be able to use somebody later on. It was a super hard start to the stage. On the Col de Landon, I was already thinking if I'll make it to the finish, but on the Col de la Madeleine, we had planned to just do our own pace. Then we'd launch Jonas Vingegaard towards the top. It looked good, but Tadej Pogacar was on his wheel, and there was a bit of attacking in between the 2 climbs on the flat section. Then we didn't have the ideal situation with Florian Lipowitz up there. The pressure fell more on us than it did on UAE, so Simon Yates did a super strong ride. He almost rode the whole climb, and then UAE took over. There wasn't much we could do at that point to make big differences at least, but it was a nice stage. And I think this is the first stage in which the post-race interviews have indicated that Visma Lease-A-Bike are slightly admitting defeat, sounding a little bit defeatist in the post-race interviews. Jonas still thinks he can win it, but his Visma Lease-A-Bike teammates are a little less on his side. But just over 500 metres to go until the neutral rollout begins. If you want to sync up with my stream, I will hit 0.5 kilometres until the stage starts when I say now. Big bit of silence. Waiting for it to flick over. Primoz Roglic on my screen right now. Looking now. There you go. He looked like a man who is ready for a big stage in prospect. He's got Florian Lipowitz to potentially ride for, or potentially not. We'll get to that later on in the stage. But a reminder of the jerseys from Pro Cycling Stats and from the Tour de France feed right now. Pogacar's in yellow and is also the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, but Jonas Vingegaard is wearing that jersey on loan from the UAE rider. Jonathan Milan is in the green jersey, and Florian Lipowitz is looking to hold onto his white jersey. In this, the final mountain stage of the Tour de France, which gets underway imminently, because Christian Prudhomme is about to pop his head out of the red Skoda at the front of this race, and the stage will begin. The calm before the storm, and it is going to be a very short and swift hurricane that rocks the peloton on this stage. Race radio is prepping. All the riders are in the peloton. Nobody's got any mechanical issues that I can see. And Tom Stroins in the Latvian national champions jersey for Lidl Trek is towards the front. Will Lidl Trek try to lock this one down? I think they will. It's a statement of intent that Quinn Simmons, Tom Stroins, and another one of their riders was towards the front. This should be a long neutralised section for Jonathan Milan to take maximum points. Soudal Quickstep are also up there with a rider, but Prudhomme is ready to wave the flag. Approaching kilometre 0 in Albertville. And by the Latvian flags, the Latvian national champion Tom Stroins gets underway. Danish flags also there, as well as a dog in a KOM jersey, who was being very roughly held back. And it's Quinn Simmons who immediately takes control of the pace in the peloton. So Lidl Trek are making their voices heard early on in this stage. 93 kilometres of racing we have on the menu. And the first 12 kilometres of those, I think, will be utterly neutralised by Lidl Trek. Quinn Simmons at the front then. Tom Stroins sat third wheel, Tim Wellens towards the front for UAE Team Emirates in the Belgian national champions jersey. A rider who performed on a shortened stage, the last one at the Tour de France, Vincenzo Nibali won. But that day I think sticks in my mind for a masterclass in domestique performance from Gregor Mühlberger of Bora-Hansgrohe. So perhaps look at him. He went down yesterday, but keep an eye on him to be in and around the breakaway on this particular stage, because he was in the break yesterday and it was a crash that ended his time in the front group on the descent of the Madeleine. But right now, Quinn Simmons and his flowing locks lead the peloton. Jasper Stuyven sat second wheel as Quinn Simmons hands over to the Belgian. Then Tom Stroins, and that looks like Thibaut Nace in fourth wheel, with Simone Consonni just monitoring the back wheel of green jersey wearer Jonathan Milan, who looks set to take 20 more points. Mutual agreement, I think, between the peloton and the breakaway to not have any riders go up the road until the intermediate sprint in Villars-sur-Doran is over. So the 12 kilometres will go by fairly gradually, and then all hell will break loose after the intermediate sprint point. So, because of this slight lull in proceedings, I might as well head over to my predictions, which we'll do shortly. I always pick 3 riders that you should watch throughout this stage, and the person I'm watching at the moment is Bruno Amirai towards the rear of the peloton for Decathlon Age Desert. Felix Gall is going to require him to put in a good performance on this stage, and Gall was in the breakaway yesterday, one of the more offensive of the GC riders, including Primoz Roglic. Who of the GC top 10 will go up the road on today's stage? Because there have been changes, but Lidl Trek are locking this race down to begin with. Heading out of Albertville. And 10 kilometres remain until we get to Villars-sur-Doran. The stage proper can begin. Bruno Amirai, though, right at the back of the peloton, alongside Mathis Louvel of Israel Premier Tech, Julien Alaphilippe as well as Luc Plapp at the back. Plapp and Alaphilippe, as well as Louvel, 3 riders that you often see towards the back of the peloton when they are not interested in doing anything in the early part of a stage. Nielsen Paulus as well towards the back had a tough day in the saddle yesterday, up Col de la Loze, but did finish 46th, so not a bad performance from the American, who's been fairly quiet at this Tour de France so far, which is a shame, because I like Nelson Paulus. But it's another American team that are at the front of the peloton. It's Lidl Trek trying to give Jonathan Milan the red carpet. They're rolling it out for him to get to Villars-sur-Durand in first position. Pogacar, of course, not winning yesterday, did benefit Jonathan Milan, who took a positive 3-point delta in the green jersey standings. I don't think he can be caught from this point onwards. Which, I mean, I'd like to have seen Pogacar win it, but I understand how bad that would have been for the image of the sport and the race if Tadej Pogacar won the green jersey, the King of the Mountains jersey, and the yellow jersey. So for now, he's just got to stick with the two, I think. Unless anybody else has any other opinions. Bruno Armirail clinging onto the back. I wonder whether he's suffered some injuries or any problems in yesterday's stage, because he does not look comfortable at all. And Tom Stroins is setting a relatively hard pace, but nothing too heavy. So Bruno Armirail struggling. Right now, though, Lidl Trek continue. Tadej Pogacar just pulls out of the pace line, blows a few snot rockets, and then moves on. Meanwhile, his Belgian teammate Tim Wellens requires some assistance from the UAE Team Emirates team car. Stroins, though, looking to lock the race down, which is a shame because they need to free him up to win some stages. Because he's more than capable of getting a stage win from the breakaway. I wonder what Lidl Trek will do tomorrow, because it looks destined for a breakaway stage. But do they try to control it for a Milan sprint, or do they finally let the teammates have their chances? We've only really seen Quinn Simmons heading up the road fairly consistently from the team. Stroins has been involved in a couple of occasions. I'm thinking the Mont Ventoux stage, where he was up the road as well, but he prefers the rolly terrain and hard stages with short hills in them. Tim Wellens now in the convoy, making his way back to the peloton, tucked up behind the Ineos Grenadiers car. And Wellens has been very impressive at this Tour de France. He's tailing off a little bit towards the end in these sorts of stages, but was involved in the breakaway yesterday. Didn't manage to hold on, but it was a strong ride early on. And UAE Team Emirates have not really had to work at their hardest throughout this Tour de France. Last year especially, it felt like they were really stretching their resources, using Pollitt on every single occasion. Whereas now, Pollitt kind of just gets used whenever and wherever. Lidl Trek radio, so far it looks like the peloton have agreed, and the car agrees with whichever rider said that. So the peloton, I think, have been asked by Lidl Trek to not attack in the first 12 kilometres and look to be following their orders. So Lidl patroning the peloton. It's usually UAE's job, and Pollitt and Pogacar that like to enjoy doing that. But Lidl Trek in this case have decided to bring it on them themselves. So it's going to be a little bit of a snoozer for the next 6 kilometres. You can lock in, I guess, for the intermediate sprint, but the usual suspects will be there. Intermarché Wanty, starting to show themselves towards the front for Biniam Girmay, who may take an interest, given that it is the final intermediate sprint that they can attain on a mountain stage. Because the next stage is going to go to a breakaway, and Paris, well, who knows what happens in Paris. So you might have a more competitive sprint than usual, or you might have the typical scenario where Jonathan Milan puts in about 70% effort in his sprint. Biniam Girmay is happy to take second, and Anthony Turgis is happy to take third. And those three just roll across the line together, with Little Trek trying to get as many riders in the top 15 as possible to ensure that Pogacar doesn't get any minor points. 5 kilometres to go until the sprint point, and Tim Wellens has made his way back to the peloton. And plenty of riders towards the back. It's a wide peloton, which means they are not going too quickly. The Cofidis rider towards the back was Benjamin Thomas, who is another rider who showed himself at the start of this tour and had quite a viral moment in which he took out Matteo Verchier to try and get one King of the Mountain point. That feels like so long ago now that Benjamin Thomas did that. But right now, stretching the legs for Decathlon Age Desert. I would like to see the race number. There we are. It is 158 Bastien Tronchon, who will have his own fan club, I'm sure, on this stage, like he did on the Col de la Loze. But Tronchon getting a wheel change from the Age Desert car as Lille Trek continue to slow pace to Villars-sur-Durand, which is going to be the new start town, I think, of this stage. It's harsh to call it a second flag drop, but I'm going to call it a second flag drop because everybody is within themselves and preparing. Barring Victorious towards the front with Lenny Martinez and Matej Mohoric, the duo that went to get the polka dot jersey in the breakaway yesterday. Didn't go well for Lenny Martinez in the end, but I think he is now racing for second in this King of the Mountains classification. Either way, he looks like he's going to throw himself forward into the breakaway. And just keep an eye on riders, climbers more importantly, heading towards the front of the peloton, because they might look to latch on to Girmay, Turgis or Jonathan Milan and use them as a launch pad to get into the earliest breakaway before the Col du Pré begins. And in 3.5 kilometres, you will see which riders will blink first. I don't think one of those riders is going to be Joe Blackmore of Israel Premier Tech, who is right at the back at the moment of the race. Nobody apart from Bastien Tronchon is in the convoy right now. So Blackmore is the second to last rider on the road. Harold Tejada moving up on the left-hand side for Astana. Was not in the breakaway yesterday and took no interest. Instead, it was his Colombian teammate who tried to latch on to the GC group, Sergio Higuita, and did pretty well across the stage. But Tejada, certainly a rider who may have been saving himself on yesterday's stage. So keep an eye on the Astana jersey of their team leader, who continues to show himself on the left-hand side of the road. The King of the Mountains jersey, the first we've seen of the new wearer, Jonas Vingegaard, in this stage on the left-hand side, moving up onto the wheel of a teammate. And is this Visma Lease-A-Bike beginning to show themselves? In 3 kilometres time, Jonathan Milan should win the intermediate sprint, and the race can begin for good. With Visma Lease-A-Bike perhaps plotting something on the Col du Pré. They tried it all ahead of yesterday's stage, ahead of the Col de la Loze, looking to do the damage before Pogacar's bogey climb, but they couldn't manage it. Alexei Lutsenko now towards the back. Israel Premier Tech have already had 3 of their riders monitoring the rear of the peloton. Lutsenko, of course, was in the breakaway yesterday, so isn't likely to go in the breakaway today, I think. And Arnaud Delis already starting to rock, roll and cling on to the rear wheel of Alexis Reynard of Cofidis. He is certainly struggling already, which is worrying for Delis. The time cut is 21% today of the finishing time. They've moved it slightly outward because of the shortened stage and the change in profile. So 21% of the winner's time is what you are looking for at the end of today's stage, as Alexei Lutsenko gets a wheel change. So that was why Lutsenko was towards the back, getting a wheel change from the Israel Premier Tech car. And towards the front is Little Trek. With 82.7 kilometers to go of the stage, it's Tom Schoens at the front of the peloton. And Lidl have 4 riders in front of Jonathan Milan still, with 1.5 kilometers until the intermediate sprint. It's Schoens, then it's Nace, then it's Quinn Simmons. Sorry, it's Schoens, then it's Nace, then it's Jasper Stuyven, and then it's Quinn Simmons. So Simmons might be leading out for Jonathan Milan. Biniam Girmay has slotted himself onto the wheel of, that looks like, Simone Consonni. And Anthony Turgis on the wheel of Biniam Girmay. Also, moving forward, you can see Jonas Abrahamsen, who enjoys getting himself involved in a intermediate sprint, and at the moment sits in 7th, just behind Anthony Turgis in the points classification. So Turgis should overtake Tim Merlier for 5th. Will he be able to get enough points, that is 11, to take Jonas Vingegaard's position in 4th as things stand? And will Jonas Abrahamsen close down on that 11-point delta to Anthony Turgis, who must keep an eye on the Norwegian in the future stages, because he'll be in and around the breakaways, I am sure of that. Yevgeny Fedorov towards the back of the peloton with Sebastian Grignard. 5-star pick on the Tour de France Fantasy. Not because he's 5 stars as in good, but 5 stars as in that's how much he costs. The lowest on the game. As Tom Schoens, with 400 metres until the intermediate sprint, continues at the front of the peloton, and they are looking at Arnaud Delis continuing to struggle at the back of the peloton. To his right is Pascal Encorn, and it's going to be a long 80 kilometres for Arnaud Delis. Forward comes Quinn Simmons with the lead out, Jonathan Milan on his wheel, followed by Biniam Girmay, Anthony Turgis and Jonas Abrahamsen. Abrahamsen slightly losing the wheel of Turgis on this slight uphill, but Biniam Girmay is in the wheel of Jonathan Milan, who goes all out for the intermediate sprint. Girmay tries to get around. In the end, Jonathan Milan in the saddle takes 20 green jersey points. Biniam Girmay 2nd. And Anthony Turgis 3rd. 4th was Quinn Simmons, who takes points off of Jonas Abrahamsen in that classification. Simmons, actually, purely by being Jonathan Milan's lead-out, sits 8th in the green jersey classification. And Jonas Abrahamsen says, why not? Let's press on. Anthony Turgis looks around at Biniam Girmay, says, do you fancy it? I don't. And Quinn Simmons looks around himself and questions whether he wants to follow this Jonas Abrahamsen move. So Abrahamsen has used the intermediate sprint to launch himself. None of the other climbers have blinked to follow Jonas Abrahamsen. Quinn Simmons looks like he's trying to get across at least. But now the attacks will be launched from the peloton. It's a false move from Groupama FDJ to begin things. And then Tudor are going to make a move on the right-hand side to close everybody else down. But Abrahamsen away on his own at the front for Uno X right now. And Lotto have multiple riders situated towards the rear of the peloton. Jared Drisners and Sebastian Grignard already nursing Arnaud Delis on this stage. But forward goes Jonas Abrahamsen, and we are going to see his climbing legs and how they fare in the third week of a Grand Tour. He is such a truck on the flat, but how does he perform when the road goes consistently uphill? And the peloton have reeled in Biniam Diomaye, Anthony Turgis, Jonathan Milan and Quinn Simmons. So Abrahamsen away on his own at the front for Uno X Mobility. And with under 80 kilometres to go, the race will start for good fairly shortly, with the climbers looking to show themselves in the breakaway, or perhaps Visma Lease-A-Bike immediately locking the race down and pacing as hard as they can up the Col du Pré. What has Jonas Vingegaard got in mind for today's stage? I don't know, but certainly here's what he had to say at the end of yesterday's efforts. Today was a brutal day, 5 hours in the saddle, and I'm not sure I have ever done such a hard stage in the Tour before. I said it before the stage, but this was a brutal stage. Despite that, my legs felt good. He then went on to say, the team felt good. We had big plans, obviously, to try and go early. We did, and unfortunately, I couldn't take any time on Tadej, but the team did amazing today. I want to thank my teammates again today. Everyone was 100% behind the plan, and it gives me so much motivation when I have a team like this working for me. We didn't want to work together with Tadej and Florian Lipowitz, and he went up the road. We waited for our teammates, and then we started pacing again on the Col de la Loze. I think it looked like me and Tadej were pretty equal today, and he took a few seconds in the end, but the Tour is not over still. And we've heard Jonas Vingegaard say this over and over again, and he still believes in his Tour de France hopes. Whether he's just saying it for the cameras, or whether he genuinely believes it, you can make your own mind up about that, I suppose. But Jonas Vingegaard is saying that the Tour is still not over, so expect something from Visma Lease-A-Bike on this profile. We've done well over 15 kilometres now, and the stage proper is underway. Jonas Abrahamsen has already set his stall out to get into the breakaway, but we approach the foot now of the Col du Pré. A popular climb in the Tour de France, as is La Plagne, which has a steeped history in this race. And the Cormet de Roseland as well. 3 climbs that have all featured a lot in the Tour de France in the past. And more history you'd expect will be written here. It's already been a historic day at the Tour, because it's the first shortened stage, I think, since 2019, in which Vincenzo Nibali certainly won the stage. I believe it was 2019. He was on what would have been Bahrain Merida back then, wouldn't it? Either way, that was what Jonas Vingegaard was saying. Meanwhile, his rival across the way, Tadej Pogacar, had this to say before today's stage. The yellow jersey looks very good, and I'm in control. It's the second Queen stage. Let's go for it and see how it goes. Now there's 3 more stages left, and then we can go on vacation. Nothing is set in stone yet. It's another big day, super big, and similar to what we've had. We need to be ready, and for the day after, and in Paris as well, because it's going to be tricky. I really don't like to hear my own voice when talking about his Col de la Loze team radio being played, So I never watch my interviews or anything, because in my head I sound different to what I hear myself on the TV. But on today's stage, I cannot wait for it to begin. And indeed it has begun. And it has begun with Jonas Abrahamsson up the road. But he is being reeled in by the second by this peloton. And Abrahamsson's time in the lead is going to be cut short. Abrahamsson has been reeled in, and at the foot of the Col de Pré, we now begin proper. Soudal Quick-Step need a little bit of assistance for one of their riders. Bert van Lerberger, I think. But we are on to the switchbacks and the climb begins, which means attacks will go. We're about 500 metres into the Col de Pré now. And EF Education Easy Post are forcing the tempo on the front, and by doing so, they are dragging a couple of riders away from the peloton in the group at the front. Nils Pollitt already looking to lock this one down for UAE Team Emirates, setting his own pace. But EF Education Easy Post have already hit some attacks, and it's Alex Baudin that has made the killer move so far. He's taking a couple of riders with him. 3 more riders are bridging across now as another rider attempts a move from the peloton. Of course, Baudin on his home roads today. And with 12 kilometres remaining of the climb, Julien Alaphilippe is already setting up Michael Storer. So Tudor Pro Cycling have 2 riders up there. Movistar also have 2 riders in the move. It looks like it's Rubio and Castrillo, I think. Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe have a rider up there. That cannot be Primoz Roglic again, can it? I think it is, you know. But more and more riders are bridging up as time is going on. And if it is Primoz Roglic up there, then panic should set in to the likes of Picnic PostNL. Marc Soler is in trouble, but Nils Pollitt is pulling. Meanwhile, Uno X is sending a couple of riders up there, and it looks like both Johannesson brothers, Anders and Tobias, and it is Primoz Roglic that's up the road. I thought it was. Pablo Castrillo's there for Movistar. Would it be weird if someone picked him? Harold Tejada, we mentioned him in the neutral rollout behind Lidl Trek, or what I'm calling the neutral rollout behind Lidl Trek. He is in the breakaway. Jordan Geigat is there too, and he's got Alexandre Delettre making his way up to him. But Primoz Roglic right now is in the wheel of Alex Baudin and is looking to cause some damage early on. He has jumped the gun, but will that be the correct move? Already, off the back goes Jonathan Milan in a group of sprinters looking to just avoid being outside the time cut. And that group includes Marc Soler, who is really, really struggling. Also down there, Pascal Inkhorn, Dylan Groenewegen is down there too. And Bastien Tronchon towards the back as well after his mechanical. But UAE are controlling at the moment. And at the moment, they're controlling the attack from Primoz Roglic, who again has been on the offensive. This time, it is with Jordan Geigat rather than Felix Gall, who has declined the invitation to go up the road. Thymen Arensman is also there, but Johannesson tried to make it up. In the end, it was ultimately futile, but Uno X are giving it another move, and more riders are clipping off the front of the peloton. So you've got to be towards the front, because groups are clipping off the peloton, and you've got to make sure you know who's who in each group. Otherwise, you've got some serious chasing to do, because it is a massive group that is starting to form if all the attacks come together. And right now, Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard look very comfortable on the bike. Vingegaard did have a couple of Visma Lease-A-Bike riders trying to get up the road. Victor Campenaerts has done that successfully. Tobias Johannesson is up there too. He's got a teammate in Anders Harland Johannesson there as well. Lenny Martinez looks like he's up there, going for King of the Mountains points you'd expect for Bahrain Victorious. But this is a group off the back, including Marc Soler, which is led at the moment by, I think that's Casper Asgreen. But De Lettre is pushing on. In the service of Jordan Jaeger, De Lettre hands over to Harold Tejada, who looks a lot more comfortable on the bike. De Lettre has just pulled one big turn and then peels off the pace line. But everybody looks like they want to control this breakaway, which includes the likes of Ben Healy, Thymen Arensman, Jordan Jaeger, Tobias Harland Johannesson, and most importantly, 5th place overall, Primoz Roglic. Just under 13 minutes down on Tadej Pogacar entering this stage. But if the peloton let the breakaway go, it could easily worry Oscar Onley, as Andreas Leknesund is trying to launch a counter move to bridge across. He's taking a rider from FDJ with him. It looks like Guillaume Martin. And a rider from Decathlon Age Desert is following as well. But Leknesund has given this one a try, and Visma Lease-A-Bike now have a rider off the back. Bull Bora-Hansgrohe also losing domestiques right now for Florian Lipowitz. In that case, it was Lawrence Pithy. Meanwhile, towards the back there was Eduardo Affini of Visma Lease-A-Bike. He's just been overtaken by Marc Soler, who is trying to pace this one back. Lenny Martinez right now sat in the wheel of a teammate and trying to force away the breakaway from the peloton, which is reeling the front group in. It's 11 seconds as things stand, but it's all over the road. The presence of Roglic, I think, is not letting this breakaway go. And Bahrain Victorious have said, we've had enough, because Rob Stannard goes to the front, Lenny Martinez on his wheel, and the Australian is setting up Martinez to go on the offensive again. Arguments now between Bruno Armirail and Michael Storer on who should close to the back wheel of the Frenchman. In the end, it is his counterpart from his nation, Bruno Armirail, that closes. And once again, this time, it looks like Tim Wellens has gone to the front for UAE Team Emirates to try and control this one. But Benoot off the back, as is Matteo Jorgensen. So Jorgensen and Benoot already distanced alongside Pavel Sivakov. So teammates from Visma Lease-A-Bike and UAE Team Emirates already being lost in the early stages of the Col de Pré. Clement Venturini towards the back as well. Pavel Bittner. Ivan Romeo has been dropped as well. But most importantly, the names that have just been dropped off the peloton are Tish Benoot and Matteo Jorgensen. Pavel Sivakov has been dropped as well, as UAE Team Emirates are trying to get their domestiques back in. I wonder whether that's Marc Soler who's continuing to try and get back. Matteo Jorgensen sits on the wheel of Soler, who is giving it his all to make it back to the yellow jersey. So the pace of Pollitt has already dropped Soler and Sivakov. That is not what the German was wanting, and that's not what the UAE Team Emirates team car would have been wanting either. 8.8 kilometres until the top of the Col de Pré, and 72.5 kilometres remaining in the stage. Geraint Thomas slightly distanced off the rear wheel of Julien Alaphilippe, who's at the back of the peloton right now. Other riders clinging on to the rear of the peloton as things stand include Israel Premier Tech's Michael Woods, Jonas Abrahamsen after his brief escapade at the front is suffering towards the back of the peloton. Meanwhile, the leading group has 2 Visma Lease-A-Bike riders in it. Victor Campenaerts and Simon Yates are there for Jonas Vingegaard's team, and it is Tim Wellens that is panicking to close this one down. Sepp Kuss actually, not Simon Yates. So Kuss and Campenaerts being in this break is spooking UAE Team Emirates out, because forward comes the Belgian national champion of Tim Wellens to try and shut this move down. But it is a good move of 15 riders that has a couple of GC hopefuls up the road in Roglic and Johannesson. So you'd think other GC teams would want to make an impact on this race as well by pacing in the peloton to close this down. But right now, it is Tim Wellens' job. Warren Barguil at the back with Julien Alaphilippe, 2 of the stalwarts of French cycling in previous years. Also towards the back is Jorgensen. So Jorgensen and Soler have made it back, which is big for both of the top 2 in the general classification. They've both gained a teammate after losing them early on in the stage. But worrying signs for both Jorgensen and Soler for the rest of this stage. Do both of them have it to be at the top over the summit of the Col du Pré? But to summarise, your 15-rider front group at the moment is being reeled in by the peloton. All cooperation in that breakaway is gone, as eyes flick to the rear of the peloton and riders are being distanced. I'm hearing Wout van Aert getting dropped. But the peloton have shut down the first big breakaway of the day, and UAE Team Emirates have been the team to do it. Victor Campenaerts and Sepp Kuss have been active, so have Primoz Roglic and Tobias Harland Johannesson. They all look like they're going to throw everything they've got at the early parts of the stage. But as of now, no breakaway has gone. So, what do the riders think will happen on this particular stage? But more importantly, what do I think will happen? Because I've got my predictions. Here were my predictions for yesterday. Tadej Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard and Emmanuel Buchmann were my ones to watch. I did not have Ben O'Connor, which I think is a loss for me in the ones to watch. Because Buchmann did not make the breakaway, he was dropped fairly quickly and had a couple of mechanical issues on the early climbs. So that scuppered his chances of being in the breakaway. Jonas Vingegaard was my favourite for the stage. In the end, he gave it his all, but was dropped by Tadej Pogacar on the final part of Col de la Loze. And Pogacar, my secondary option, could not catch Ben O'Connor on the road, who had a sterling performance to win on Col de la Loze. So I'm hoping for better today. And here's who I've gone for. Castrillo as my breakaway rider to watch, which is a good start because he's already got up the road with Aina Rubio. Before, Aina Rubio has decided to make another move now in a breakaway group that includes Roglic and Martinez, so it's the same sort of names going up the road. And Roglic being so attacking is going to worry Picnic PostNL. Either way, I've gone Castrillo from the breakaway, I've gone Pogacar to win the stage, and I've gone Jonas Vingegaard as my backup pick. So, hopefully I get the stage winner right, or Pablo Castrillo makes it in the break. I think either of those happen, and I will take half a point in this competition that I am only running myself, and I don't think anybody else is interested in. But those are my picks for today of who to watch on this particular stage. Pogacar for the stage win, Vingegaard as a backup option, Castrillo from the breakaway. But more and more riders are trying to ping off the front as time goes on. Visma Lease-A-Bike continuing to push the issue with Victor Campenaerts. And right now, it is Roglic, Rubio and Martinez that are forcing the tempo in the breakaway. We've seen attempts from Harold Tejada and Valentin Paripantra to get across. Tobias Foss has been involved in the breakaway early on, as has Bruno Amirai and Michael Storer, who was set up by Julien Alaphilippe. Ultimately, that move didn't go, but will this move go? Or will UAE Team Emirates look to control it again? Either way, you've got a great little battle on in the general classification for the podium that Primož Roglic is contributing to right now. I am just going to go for a brief intermission while I'm on ads. I will come back in like a minute. I just need to get one of my graphics sorted. Right, I'm done. After that was actually quite quick, to be fair to me. Very quick edit. But I've now got a GC that I can show to you in the next advert break, which is what I forgot to do before the start of this stream. Poor planning from me. But it is Tim Wellens that's looking again to pull back the breakaway and destroy their hopes of a stage win. Pogacar maybe then has circled this stage, but Primož Roglic is forcing it at the front of the race. He's got Michael Storer on his wheel, followed by Enea Rubio and then Victor Campenaerts, with Bruno Amirai trying to make it across, and has done so. Meanwhile, Victor Campenaerts has been dropped off of the pace of Primož Roglic, so it is just Roglic, Rubio, Lenny Martinez, who is hard to see, but even behind the slight figure of Enea Rubio, Martinez is just another level of small. And Bruno Amirai, Seb Piquet really needs to fix his race radio because I am just hearing pure static from that man right now. But Tobias Foss has Victor Campenaerts and Michael Storer with him in a three-man chase group of Martinez, Roglic, Rubio and Amirai. But riders are being shed out of the rear of the peloton, and teammates of the top two, most notably Sepp Kuss, who is starting to struggle. He's got Jasper Stuyven on his wheel, which I think shows you how much he is in the red right now. But Sepp Kuss looking to pace his own effort, but it's Tim Wellens that is putting the American into difficulty at the moment. Already tried to get up the road with Victor Campenaerts, but this is a bad sign for Sepp Kuss, who is being dropped from the peloton. So Kuss is struggling, which is a bad sign for Jonas Vingegaard. Matteo Jorgensen we've seen dangling off the back as well, but we've also seen Marc Soler and Pavel Sivakov do the same for UAE Team Emirates. Eduardo Affini is gone and far down the road now. He'll be with the rest of the green jersey hopefuls, you'd think, who are already 3 minutes and 49 seconds down. They're going to be benefiting from an increased time cut at the end of today's stage. But right now, 5 kilometres until the top of the Col du Pré for the breakaway group, which have 23 seconds on the peloton. It's not a lot of time, but we're about to get some team radio from Intermarché Wanty. The team car says this is the hardest climb of the day. Also, guys, the climbs after are more steady, but this is a really hard one. Come on, let's fight and let's keep going. And that will be a message, I'm sure, directed at Biniam Girmay and the rest of his teammates who will be in the green jersey group. Girmay is there for Intermarché Wanty. Lawrence Rex is with him for now. The rest of the Intermarché Wanty team are situated between them and the breakaway group. Also dropped is Jonas Ruch and Roel van Sint-Maartensdijk. So in the peloton, clinging on right now for Intermarché Wanty. Let me have a look at the rest of their team, and I'll tell you who is continuing to press on in the peloton. Louis Barret is trying, Vito Bright as well. Ugo Page is giving it a go, which, I mean, I'd be very surprised if he's still in the peloton at this point. But Barret and Vito Bright are the two Intermarché Wanty riders that are still there. They won't be going for the stage, you'd think. I don't think they are talented enough going uphill in the nicest way possible to be in and around the stage win, but right now, Primož Roglič is showing his talent on the Col du Pré. Valentin Paris-Pantra has made it up to this group, so it is now a group of 5 riders at the front of the race. Roglič, Martinez, Rubio, Paris-Pantra, Armirai, with Campenaerts, Stora and Foss in a chase group at 8 seconds behind. 68 kilometres remain, and if Campenaerts, Foss and Stora get across, then you've got a good group of 8 riders. Campenaerts, Foss and Armirai can force things on the flat. Paris-Pantra, Martinez, Roglič, Rubio and Stora all thrive when the road goes uphill. 8 riders is probably not the amount that they want up the road, but Lenny Martinez has said, I don't want 8, I want 2, because Primož Roglič is following him. And this is an acceleration in the tempo from Lenny Martinez. Looking for King of the Mountains points you'd expect. But Pogacar getting out the saddle, looking a little uncomfortable. Following the wheel of Simon Yates at the moment. Jonas Vingegaard looked a little bit more in control there, but I am struggling to clutch any more straws. Jonathan Narvaez is sat on Pogacar's wheel as Tim Wellens and Marc Soler set the pace at the front of the peloton. Yates and Narvaez monitoring Pogacar's wheel, and Jonas Vingegaard is running out of teammates. He's got Victor Campenaerts up the road, which is a positive sign for him, but Sepp Kuss is continuing to struggle. Kuss, of course, won the Vuelta a couple of years ago, and Primož Roglič was one of his main rivals there, admittedly in the same team, but right now he is pushing on. Lenny Martinez with a couple of looks around his left shoulder to see where the race situation stands. He elects to follow Primož Roglič for now, and he's got to stay with the front group at all times to try and get himself some King of the Mountains points. Martinez then is away with Roglič for now, with 67.5 kilometres remaining in the stage. Barret and Bright have now been distanced, so on Intermarché watch, they no longer have any riders in the peloton. So Roglič and Martinez are away. They've got 11 seconds on Valentin Paris-Pantra, who's on his own. Rubio and Armirai have dropped back to Campenaerts, Foss and Stora, and they sit at 22 seconds behind the peloton, which is being led by Tim Wellens on the Col du Pré. How long can Wellens last, and how much damage can the Belgian national champion do? At the moment, it is a lot, because riders are being shed constantly from this peloton, which not long ago was 84 riders. It certainly isn't that now, because Tim Wellens is thinning this group out hand over fist. Michael Stora has pulled the pin on his breakaway attempts for Tudor Pro Cycling, who are now the only team, now that Uno X have won a stage with Jonas Abrahamsen, to not win at the Tour de France. Admittedly, of course, it's their first year, but I think they'd have been hoping for a little bit better than what they've ended up getting. Alberto Dainese's not been in and around the front when it comes to sprints. Michael Stora has not been victorious from any breakaways. Meanwhile, Bahrain Victorious are on the radio right now. saying stay patient there, just on the wheel. Roglic has the interest to shake up the GC, but you have to be smart. And that message was directed at Lenny Martinez, who is just going to let Primoz Roglic do his thing. Right now, 5th overall, 12 minutes and 49 seconds down on Tadej Pogacar, but the more important gap for Primoz Roglic is the gap between him and Oscar Onley in 4th, which is 1 minute and 26 seconds. Meanwhile, the gap between Roglic and Lipowitz is 22 seconds more than that. So that is the race situation right now. But Tim Wellens is really pressing hard on the pedals here. And Marc Soler is starting to grit his teeth to try and follow. Sat in third wheel at the moment is Jonas Vingegaard, who only has Simon Yates with him. So UAE Team Emirates already looking to isolate Jonas Vingegaard early on. He's got Victor Campenaerts up the road, so he still has somebody there if Yates drops. But right now, Michael Woods and Clement Champoussin are starting to struggle. Harold Tejada also towards the back. Other riders slightly being distanced from this peloton. And they're dangling, really, the two Astana riders clinging on to Gita and Tejada right now. The Alpecin-de-Koning rider that is still there is Emil Vestringer. Kevin Vauquelin as well is struggling. He's got Ewan Costiu in front of him for company, but he had Ewan Costiu with him as well on yesterday's stage where he was in trouble again. So Vauquelin, once more entering the red. Can he hold himself though? After his wobble, another Alpecin-de-Koning rider is in there, so this is a good performance from them on the climbs. Sandro Merisa. It's their two riders that can go uphill. Meanwhile, Michael Woods settles back into the saddle. And Primoz Roglic looks for a turn from Lenny Martinez. Martinez duly obliges. And with 2.6 kilometres to go, the gap has opened from Martinez and Roglic to the peloton. And it's approaching 50 seconds now. Paripantra struggling to make it across. He's at 7 seconds behind his fellow featherweight French climber, Lenny Martinez, who gets out of the saddle. Primoz Roglic looks over his shoulder, realises that Paripantra is close, but will continue on with his effort. Roglic sat second wheel. Paripantra, of course, has no interest in the GC whatsoever now that Remco Evenepoel is out of the race. Paripantra looks like he's really struggling though. But he's that sort of a rider. He always rides similar to like Bauke Mollema in a way. He looks like he's on the limit whenever he turns the pedals. Primoz Roglic, on the other hand, looks more than in control. Harold Tejada, with his Colombian teammate Sergio Higuita alongside, both of those have missed the breakaway. Tejada's tried to get in it. Did get into a front group and has now been dropped by the peloton. So not a great sign for Astana, who on this last mountain stage have got none of their mountain riders into the break so far. And I don't see Clement Champoussin still there. So that might be their chances at a stage win over. Martinez and Roglic then have 27 seconds on Victor Campenaerts, 11 on Paripantra, and still have 50 seconds over the peloton. Both of these guys are on a mission to get to the top of the Col de Pré with as big of an advantage as possible. They've got 1.8 kilometres until they crest the summit, which Lenny Martinez will be more interested in than Primoz Roglic, I'm sure. Because as it stands at the top of the Col de Pré, there will be 20 points given out, likely to Lenny Martinez, unless Primoz Roglic has anything to say about it. Campenaerts, Foss, Rubio and Armirai are struggling to stay together. Bruno Armirai slightly dropping the wheel of Ena Rubio right now, who must be hurting from his breakaway escapades yesterday. The second best rider from that breakaway followed the right move, Ben O'Connor's, but could not have the legs to beat the Australian on yesterday's stage up Col de la Loze. But Tobias Foss forces the issue. Victor Campenaerts sat second wheel, riding within himself, looking down at the wattage he's doing on the head unit. But Lenny Martinez being in this break, controversially maybe after his 8-point penalty that he got for the sticky bottle from the Bahrain Victorious team car, which will not be able to get to him until the gap is a minute. But Valentin Paré-Pantra is closing this one down. It was 8 seconds about a kilometre ago. It's now 3 seconds, and he has got Lenny Martinez's rear wheel within touching distance. Paré-Pantra has got about 6 bike lengths to close to get to Lenny Martinez. But right now, with 65 kilometres of the stage remaining, our front duo might become a trio. Martinez continues to press on though. Roglic hands over to him. Meanwhile, Tobias Foss is preferring to go it alone in the chase group. And a chase group that is not gaining any time at the moment on the peloton, led by UAE Team Emirates. I'm trying to see in the background who is leading in the main group. And it still is Tim Wellens. So Tim Wellens is continuing his efforts to bring back Victor Campenaerts in this breakaway, or keep him at an attainable distance. Valentin Paré-Pantra fighting with the bike to try and get to Lenny Martinez right now. Roglic takes a bottle from one of the Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe Swan years. Martinez does the same from a Bahrain Victorious. But with 1 kilometre to the top of the Col de Pré, there is not much time for respite in the descent. Valentin Paré-Pantra is about to get there and make the catch. Meanwhile, Lenny Martinez will have his eyes 1,000 metres up the road and the 20 points that are on offer for going over the Hors category Col de Pré. At the moment, Martinez sits 7? No. 33, points behind Tadej Pogacar. So he's going to go within 13. The Cormet de Roselon will give him an extra 5, which will take him within 8. So if he wins both climbs, then he'd have to win the stage on La Plagne and Pogacar to finish 3rd or lower. $64.5 to go in the stage. Jonathan Milan in the green jersey group is almost 7 minutes down on the lead of the race, and the peloton is holding the gap to the leading 3, which is now the leading 2, because Valentin Paré-Pantra is yo-yoing off the rear wheel of Lenny Martinez, who is trying his best to follow the pace of Primoz Roglic right now, who is in his own race. He is in an individual time trial of around 80 kilometres that he started a while back, midway through the Col de Pré. But Paré-Pantra looks like he is really suffering early on. Makes it back to the wheel of Primoz Roglic, and Lenny Martinez goes to the front. Will the tempo increase, or will they let Paré-Pantra have the wheel to give them an extra rider to force the issue in the valleys? Campenaerts' group, though, is only 10 seconds away from the peloton. So they might be reeled in over the top of the Col du Pré. And that is Campenaerts, Foss, Rubio and Armirai. So Martinez goes over the King of the Mountains point. Nobody else is interested. Roglic rolls over second, Pari-Pantra third. And Tobias Foss continues to pace the group, including Victor Campenaerts, who sits second wheel, Rubio in third, and Bruno Armirai hanging on to the rear in fourth. Foss going at his own tempo will cross the line you would expect to take 10 points in fourth. And the peloton are just out of sight of the Campenaerts group, who have increased their gap now to 20 seconds. As we are past the first hour of racing. So 2 points will be given out to the first rider over in the peloton, and that goes to Tim Wellens. Jonas Vingegaard not interested, neither is Tadej Pogacar in taking any points. So Lenny Martinez now heads down the descent, only 13 points behind Tadej Pogacar after going over the Col du Pré in first. He's got 35 seconds of an advantage on a chasing group of 4 riders, alongside Pari-Pantra and Roglic, of course, and the 4 riders are Campenaerts, Foss, Rubio and Armirai. And then the peloton is at 55 seconds down, headed by Tim Wellens, who takes the remaining 2 points over the climb. Now, here is what the general classification looked like before the stage ended yesterday. Jordan Giguet, most notably in the top 10. And then watch his name disappear and watch everybody else reorder themselves. Felix Gall and Kevin Vauquelin swap over, because here's what it looks like now. Pogacar leads the way, 4 minutes and 26 ahead of Jonas Vingegaard in second. Florian Lipowitz is in third place, holding down the podium for Bull Bora-Hansgrohe at 11 minutes and 1. Oscar Onley is only 22 seconds behind Florian Lipowitz, with Primoz Roglic a minute and 48 down on his Red Bull teammate. Felix Gall sits 6th at 15 minutes 36 and should be able to hold off Kevin Vauquelin, who is already struggling this stage, in 7th place for Arkea on 16 minutes 15. Tobias Johannesson had a good stage yesterday after recovering from his stomach problems on Mont Ventoux. He's at 18 minutes and 31 seconds down in 8th. Ben Healy 9th on just over 25 minutes, and Ben O'Connor, just about within the half-hour mark, sits 10th overall. So that's an update on your general classification. Jonathan Milan is now on 352 points because he took maximum points at the intermediate sprint in Villars-sur-Durand. Tadej Pogacar did not take any points, but Biniam Girmay took 17, which means Pogacar still sits second on 257. Biniam Girmay will strengthen his hold on third place for Intermarché Wanty at the end of today. But Milan is on the 352, and that is pretty much an unassailable lead now in the sprint classification. So Milan, barring accident or incident or OTL, should take the green jersey of this Tour de France. Pogacar should take King of the Mountains jersey, unless Lenny Martinez has anything to say about it. Martinez entered the day on 72 points after a sticky bottle from the Bahrain Victorious team car, which was fairly obvious and noted by basically everybody that was watching at that point, was penalised. It resulted in an 8-point penalty for Lenny Martinez. So he was on 80, but probably wouldn't have got 80 points had it not been for the intervention from his team car. So I'd say quite rightly, given the punishment, maybe wasn't given a harsh enough punishment. I'd have docked him an extra couple of points, I think, because it was blatantly obvious He tried to act it, which was even worse. It was just terrible acting from Lenny Martinez. But he's on 72 points entering today. He's now up to 92 after taking 20 points on the Col du Pré, which means he jumps Jonas Vingegaard, who is on 89 points in second entering today, but Pogacar remains atop the King of the Mountains classification on 105, with a 13-point advantage on Lenny Martinez, who is the new second place. Florian Lipowitz leads the white jersey, which is going to be the main jersey battle that I am watching on this particular stage, because he's 22 seconds ahead of Oscar Onley. It is a two-rider battle royale for the white jersey. Tables, ladders and chairs match between Lipowitz and Onley. Kevin Vauquelin hoping to hold his third position from Ben Healy, and should be able to do so. He's at 5 minutes and 14 seconds, but Ben Healy might be licking his lips at the opportunity of a third position with Kevin Vauquelin's form at the moment, but Tim Wellens is ripping this race apart. Groups are few and far between now. Riders are being peeled off and struggling to maintain the tempo of Tim Wellens, who is going absolutely absurd on the valley between the Col du Pré and the Cormet de Roselon. What a shot that is. But 59.4 kilometres to go. Victor Campenaerts, Tobias Foss, Einer Rubio are the trio of chasers now. They have dropped Bruno Armirail, who looks destined to be on his way back to the peloton. Meanwhile, Kevin Vauquelin has been dropped with Jordan Gega and is now in his own race. Rubio has dropped Tobias Foss, who is the next rider, and Andreas Leknesund was attempting to make the bridge from the peloton. Rubio is away though and attacking on his own. 38 seconds is the advantage that Paripantra, Martinez and Roglic have on the peloton. Paripantra looks across at Primož Roglic, has a brief word, does the same with Lenny Martinez, and those three riders know exactly what they have to do. They've just got to get their heads down and ride. Try and open the gap as far as possible to the peloton, who looked very interested in the stage win on this, a shortened stage at the Tour de France. The first climb is done. And confirmation that Martinez does take the 20 points. Tim Wellens adds 2 more to his King of the Mountains total, which I don't think he cares about after caring so much early on in this tour. Wellens is now up to 12 points after picking most of his up at the start of this race. The former King of the Mountains jersey wearer, Wellens, instead has reverted back to the Belgian national champions jersey, which has given him some good results. A stage win to complete his Tour de France Giro d'Italia Vuelta hat trick at age 34. He did that on stage 15. Now he's got the stage win. His main objective, you'd think, would be getting Tadej Pogacar to Paris in the yellow jersey and ensuring that Jonas Vingegaard does not overtake their Slovenian in the general classification by the end of this Tour de France. 20 seconds separate the group of Vauquelin from the yellow jersey group, and that might continue to rise because the Cormet de Roselon is up next, 5.8 kilometres at 6.5%, and we've seen this valley road between the Pré and the Roselon before at the Tour de France. It is Andreas Leknesund who's having a great ride, keeping up with everybody in the breakaway and in the yellow jersey group. And he is doing a superlative teammate job for Tobias Harlan Johannesson right now, because Primož Roglic is up the road and they perhaps see an opportunity and not a crisis at Uno X. Johannesson, of course, down on Roglic in the general classification, but perhaps they see an opportunity at overtaking Roglic. He is well behind, though, Tobias Harland Johannesson, so Roglic would need a pretty spectacular crack. Unless they're trying to pace down the breakaway so that Johannesson can solo bridge. So Leknesund has gone to the front, attempting to get Tobias Harland Johannesson into this break. "31 seconds separate the yellow jersey and the breakaway. So Leknesund will be keeping an eye on that gap, as will the UAE team car and Tobias Harland Johannesson, to figure out what time gap they want to bridge across. But I thought Tim Wellens was doing a good job. Leknesund, though, at the front. Tim Wellens sat second wheel. Third wheel is Marc Soler with Tadej Pogacar sat fourth. Jonas Vingegaard has got Victor Kampenaerts with him, as well as Simon Yates, so Kampenaerts has rejoined this peloton from the breakaway group. There's the view of the yellow jersey group from the camera motorbike of the breakaway, which is now onto the Cormet de Roseland. They've got 5 kilometres left of their effort, 6.5% average gradient on this climb, and it's Lenny Martinez that is pushing on. They'll have word in their ears from the respective team cars of Soudal Quickstep, Bahrain Victorious and Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe that Leknesund is trying to pace them down, and that Uno X are looking to get a rider up the road alongside them. But right now they've expended so much energy that they probably don't want the Norwegian with them in the breakaway. Uno X as well will be pacing because Vauquelin has been dropped. So it is a double-edged sword for Uno X. So there's 1 minute and 45 that separates Leknesund. There's 1 minute 45 that separates Johannesson and Vauquelin. And they've already seen cracks showing in Kevin Vauquelin, who has Raul Garcia Piana and Ewan Costew with him. A couple of other riders in that group, Verstringer, Anders Harland Johannesson, Luke Plapp, Nielsen Paulus and Michael Storer, with Jordan Jaeger as well, 11th overall in that group too. But Uno X see an opportunity to put time into Kevin Vauquelin and are trying to do that with Andreas Leknesund. Because of this, though, UAE Team Emirates and Visma Lease-A-Bike are getting a free ride. Four kilometres until the top of the Cormet de Roseland then. And that means there's 55.5 kilometres of the day remaining. 24 seconds separate the peloton from the break. And by doing this pace on the front, Andreas Leknesund to drop Kevin Vauquelin, they are pulling Roglic, Martinez and Peripantra back. And you've got a very sketchy descent coming forward. Down the Cormet de Roseland, it's a long one as well, so you've got to keep your eyes open, and I wonder whether that's where Visma might try to send it, to put Pogacar into difficulty. They attempted to attack the descent on yesterday's stage with Matteo Jorgensen, with Jonas Vingegaard in his wheel. But as of now, they are sticking in the peloton and allowing Andreas Leknesund to control the three-man breakaway. But Leknesund's eyes will be further down the road on the Arkea B&B Hotels jersey of Kevin Vauquelin, who drops early. We've seen him do this on a couple of stages now. And then just tries to hold on as best as possible, and usually does hold on pretty well. Hence why he's still only 16 minutes down in the general classification. And holding his GC position as things stand, which is 7th overall. Uno-X will be looking to enter that vacated space if Vauquelin cannot hold the gap. But Roglic is starting to hold the gap for Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. And at what point does Primož Roglic go, this is not working? Martinez and Paris-Pantra, the two featherweight French climbers on his wheel. But Roglic right now is doing the majority of the tempo. Martinez will be hoping he can get as much of a free ride as possible to the top of the Comé de Roseland so he can pocket 5 more points to his King of the Mountains total. Red Bull Bora, though, have gone offensive, and in the end it's not looking like it's working because individual riders and individual teams have different ideas. This is the beauty of the Tour de France. So many different scenarios on the road right now. You went away for 15 minutes to record a vid. What on earth happened in the meanwhile? Where did you get to? What was going on? Who was in the group? How was everything going? Basically, what we've got is a 3-rider breakaway now. Roglic, Martinez, and Valentin Paris-Pantra, who's joined Roglic and Martinez, bridged across. Campenaerts, Foss, Stora, and Armirai have been caught by the peloton, so Jonas Vingegaard still has Campenaerts as a teammate in the peloton, and Simon Yates is there as well. Pollitt and Wellens have ripped it apart on the Col du Pré, and by doing so they've dropped Kevin Vauquelin, and now Uno-X have realised that Vauquelin has been dropped, so they've sent Andreas Leknesson to try and go as hard as possible on the Roseland because they can see a scenario where Tobias Harland Johannesson can move up into 7th overall. So as a result, this breakaway has accidentally been put on a really short leash because Uno-X have seen an opportunity from this. So while all that's gone on, UAE Team Emirates are getting a free ride behind Leknesund and Visma Lease-A-Bike are getting a free ride behind UAE Team Emirates. Right, so UAE calls this and not Visma. Yes. What has happened is that Sepp Kuss is out the back. He was one of the first guys to drop. I'm not sure whether you saw Jorgensen getting dropped. He made it back and then got dropped again. So yeah, it's 3 Visma against, I think, 5 UAE. Valentin Paris-Pantra is increasing the pace though. This looks like an attack from the Soudal Quickstep rider, and Lenny Martinez was not bluffing in the breakaway. Paris-Pantra has distanced Martinez. Roglic can go with him. But Paris-Pantra's pressure puts Martinez into difficulty, and Roglic replaces the bottle on his bike. Battle between 2 old men there for that bidon. Kuss gave me false hope last stage. Yeah, I think he used up the tank on the last stage. I wonder whether that's how the tour is going to be raced though now. Like you use half the team on one stage and save half the team for the others. That's what it feels like. Because today Campenaerts has been brilliant. And yesterday he was not nowhere, but he was dropped fairly early on. And Simon Yates didn't do too much yesterday. It was mostly Kuss, and he looks fine as well. So I wonder whether it's just if you do little work the day before, actually you might be good. You heard Remco being in talks with Red Bull. Have you heard as well the Vauquelin to Ineos rumour that because of their doctor who is now being investigated for doping, it's put him off Ineos, so Vauquelin is back on the market. And by the sounds of it, might be off to UAE. But Remco to Red Bull, I have heard about, yeah. It's been a saga that's been going on for a while, but it's really starting to gather some legs. And I'll save my thoughts for the podcast. But yeah, Vauquelin to UAE is the latest rumour. Lanterne Rouge has said Vauquelin on the market, ? So I wonder whether that has now alerted Visma, but I think UAE can pay more, I'm afraid, than Visma Lease-A-Bike for Kevin's services. Odds on Remco, Roglic, Lipowitz. Oh yeah, that's guaranteed to happen. Remco, Roglic, Lipowitz trying to take out Tadej next year. The odds on them actually doing it, 0. I've also got a Pogacar discussion point for this ep, so lots of clippable moments that we can use for the podcast. Because yeah, he's said something quite interesting in an interview that we can kind of waffle about for a couple of minutes. So yeah, do shout me on today's pod if we don't talk about it, because yeah, actually might be good for a clip. It's kind of similar to the Jonas Vingegaard situation about how he's like slightly getting tired of the bike race a bit. But Axel Laurence has been dropped. He is in the Higuita Tejada Kevin Vauquelin group. And 1 kilometre remains of the Cormet de Roselon climb. Lucas is very happy that I've just given him some clickbait. Wapow, thank you very much. I'll be expecting my cut in the post. But Valentin Perry-Pantra, at the moment, I was trying to think of like a letter pun. I can't think of one. He's licking the stamp and sending it. Oh, got there eventually. And Lenny Martinez is struggling to hold on. He has made it back to the leading group, but he is fighting to stay on the wheel. By the way, the last pod seemed to hit the pod, you fanboys. Nice to hear. I've not seen any of the response. Either way, if it's hit somebody, then I'll take it, to be honest with you. It could hit the Matthias Frank fanboys for all I care. If it hits an audience, then I'll take it, And at the end of the day, engagement. That's what it's about. That's what it's about, Lucas. 51.8 kilometres to go. Valentin Perry-Pantra, 400 metres until the top of the climb, is out of the saddle and pressing on. Lenny Martinez is queuing himself up for a sprint. This is going to be his finish line, I think, the Cormet de Roselon, because he looks like he does not have it. 42 seconds behind him are a marauding peloton, led by a mixture of Uno X and UAE Team Emirates. Lenny Martinez at the moment being boxed in by the motorbike with 170 metres of the climb remaining. And Martinez just has to dig in for one more effort, one more acceleration to get past Valentin Perry-Pantra, and he's doing that at the moment. An increase in tempo from Lenny Martinez. Perry-Pantra on the wheel. Little bit of camera difficulty there. But Lenny Martinez crosses the line and takes 5 more points for his King of the Mountains jersey. Valentin Perry-Pantra takes 3, Roglic takes 2, and we will see who is leading the peloton over the Cormet de Roselon for 1. But this is the descent to watch, because it's one of the sketchiest descents in all of the Alps, and UAE Team Emirates have retaken control from Uno X. It's Marc Soler now on the front, with Tim Wellens sat second wheel, so Wellens is still there. And 4 UAE Team Emirates teammates with Tadej Pogacar. Jonas Vingegaard only has Victor Campenaerts and Simon Yates alongside him. I will check the pod statistics in a second and give you my thoughts, Lucas. See what the comments are saying, let's say. And answer them on stream, live on stream, why not? But I thought we were, I thought it wasn't the most, podgy bashing episode we've ever done. Obviously, you've got your Vingegaard thing, but I try and stay, neutral. you know, for the sake of the Pogacar fans that may stumble across. So I am wondering what these guys are saying. I'm about to go for a ad break, so I've got time to do it. And with around 50 kilometres remaining, 45 seconds is the gap between the leaders and the peloton. With Vauquelin almost 2 minutes down now and struggling to hold this gap to the yellow jersey group. Right then. Let me scroll. Here we go then. I want to see Podgy WO, says Roslismail 8795. I don't know what he means from WO. If you want a podcast, don't show much bias, mate. People tend to hate biased takes. Visma is not paying you like they do with Patrick. Pod is better, just no excuses. If you're talking about the guy on the right, then I'm from Denmark, and obviously a Jonas fan, kind of part of the point with the podcast. See, I like to think that I'm on not necessarily the other side, but I temper your expectations. Obviously, like you, I don't know, obviously you're like, more Jonas, and like have to dig into your Danish thing. But I feel like it's kind of my job to be that other side of the coin. Anyway, Vingegaard is not done yet. He has another plan. He will win tomorrow by more than 30 minutes bold. When Visma couldn't take him out with the car, they knew they were fucked. True. Visma is really desperate to interfere with the riders feeding is a new low. This is a Podgy fan, on my word. And by saying that, admits what Jorgensen was doing early by pushing in front of Podgy in the feed zone was then in fact intentional. Podgy should not give Visma anything. And when did we talk about Podgy giving Visma anything? Anyway, whatever. Engagement is engagement at the end of the day. Pro Cycling Stats is saying it's raining. I don't know that because I've gone for an advert break. So that was me flying through the comments of the podcast. And at the end of the day, the Pogacar fans are out in force. And they probably will be on this final climb of the day. Either way, not too long in the stage remaining. And very shortly, it will be time for serious action to ensue. Because La Plagne is 28 kilometres away. It is a very consistent climb. 19.3 kilometres, 7.2% average. For a grand total of 20 points over the top of the climb to the stage winner. And the green jersey will also take 20 points, or the winner will take 20 points for the green jersey. I don't think Jonathan Milan will win. That's a hot take, I'm sure. But that is the climb that is ahead of us. And we have an all-out brawl for third place between Oscar Onley and Florian Lipowitz, which Felix Gall has had a word about. Here's what he had to say. We did the climb of La Plagne a few times in altitude camps in the past, so I know that quite well. We have the Col du Pré before that, which is a steep one. One more push is needed. In the end, I have to do my race. I was also a bit surprised that Primoz Roglic was not waiting for Florian Lipowitz. Now, it's only 22 seconds between Oscar Onley and Lipowitz, and Onley looks super strong. So Gall is an Onley believer. Is Onley an Onley believer? He says it's not much of a gap to Florian Lipowitz, so we will give it everything. And I am on the edge of my seat. Oscar Onley doing some offensive racing. Bring it to me, and bring it to me right now. I am an Onley fan. For the sake of him being a Brit. Nothing really more. Florian Lipowitz has said, tomorrow will be another hard day, so I hope I can recover well and we go again. We'll have to see. I think we'll make a plan, and then we will see what will happen on La Plagne. A plan on La Plagne, says Florian Lipowitz, who right now is in the white jersey, but for how long will he hold that? Will he be able to hold that at the end of the day? His main rival is Oscar Onley, who sits 22 seconds behind him. And 2 climbs have been completed on this route. Meanwhile, Lenny Martinez and Valentin Paré-Pantra have been dropped by Primož Roglič in this breakaway, who is increasing the gap to the yellow jersey group. It is over a minute now, and the first time that we have seen it go beyond 60 seconds in this stage. Roglič sending it down the descent. Martinez and Paré-Pantra cannot follow. The weight advantage is on the side of the Slovenian. But it is very sketchy down here. Different road surfaces, cracks in the road, plenty of troubling corners, and steep gradients on this descent. Not the nicest melting pot of a descent. And the rain has added to that ever so slightly. Ned Bolting is saying that the finish, it is tipping it down at the finish. Roglič catching Paré-Pantra, who was away at the front, on the descent, and Paré-Pantra does not have enough gears to follow Primož Roglič, who is now on his own at the front of the race. This is the Roglič of old, the Lotto NL Jumbo Primož Roglič that we're seeing at the moment. On his own, going down the Corme de Roselend descent. If you close your eyes, you will see him in the yellow and black, riding to his first Tour de France stage win. But if you open your eyes, you realise that the gap is 57 seconds between the Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe man and Tadej Pogacar in the yellow jersey. He's got 11 seconds on Valentin Paré-Pantra as things stand as they are. And Vauquelin is a minute behind the peloton already, so is struggling. And this is advantage Uno X, who still have Tobias Haaland Johannesson in that yellow jersey group. And they still, I think, have Andreas Leknesund. They both donned the coats knowing that rain was incoming on this descent. So it's now hard to tell whether Leknesund was still in the group over the top of the Roselend or not. Did have a bit of a wobble after being in the breakaway yesterday, with Raul Garcia Pierna poking his front wheel where he didn't want it to go. Roglič, though, leans in and makes it round another corner unscathed. The squeal of brakes for Primož Roglič as he rounds the next one, a left-handed hairpin. That one's done. Plenty of tree cover here at the moment, but it's narrow roads, and I've seen Roglič crash on a narrow descent before, admittedly in much wetter conditions than this. But Roglič making sure he holds it upright for now. The Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe rider continues and does not need to take risks. He's at the front of the race. He'd of course want to open the gap if he really could, but I don't think it's necessary for him as of now, especially with Paré-Pantra and Martinez behind. He can afford to ride this descent 8 seconds slower than them so that they can join him in the valley. Roglič doesn't look incredibly smooth as a descender, and I think he is concerned about losing Paré-Pantra and Martinez for such an important flat section of around 10 to 15 kilometres before La Plagne begins. Wellens, though, is going at the same speed as Primož Roglič, taking fewer risks, clearly. But right now, Wellens being the better descender of the two, results in the gap staying as it is. Anders Haaland Johannesson is the Uno X rider in the group of Vauquelin, sat just in front of Tejada and Higuita of Astana. Also down here is Nielsen Paulus of EF Education Easy Post, but it is the 3 Arkea B&B riders that are forcing it down this descent. Raul Garcia Pierna and Ewan Costiu at the front, with Kevin Vauquelin sat on their wheel. Meanwhile, Roglic having a little more flow with his descending, but not necessarily taking fantastic lines at the moment, not having his wheel on the ragged edge of the descent, and I think riding very heavily within himself down this downhill. And Roglic doing this without trouble. It doesn't look like he's herring it down this descent and has anything really to ride for. The camera moto following him easily so far. Only a gradual piece of out of the saddle riding there, I think, shows you how little he is focusing on taking time on the peloton. But not many areas to really build up that maximum speed on the descent. Meanwhile, Roglic at the moment is pootling along fine and keeping it upright, which is all he has to do as of now. But Martinez now has been dropped by Valentin Parry-Pantra and is struggling to hold the wheel. The time gap between Parry-Pantra and Roglic was said to be 3 seconds. I'm not sure whether it is that. And 55 seconds separate Roglic from the peloton. Meanwhile, Pro Cycling Stats updating us with a Streets Won't Forget statistic. The last time that a big race finished on La Plagne, it was the Critérium du Dauphiné, and it was one of the 2 victories in 2021 for Marc Padun. Streets will not forget prime Marc Padun at Bahrain victorious. Either way, I've just gone for an ad break. So, I think I've gone through pretty much everything somehow, which is crazy, in my set of quotes. I'm not reusing Ralph Danks like I did on yesterday's stage, so I'm just gonna have to play it as it is. Intriguingly enough, I might as well get this out of the way, given that there's nobody here. I still have this. It's not gonna work because I haven't actually made the wheel for Breakaway Bingo, but Breakaway Bingo was a mainstay of this, and I might as well get all of these scenes out of the way because it's going to be the last year that we're doing this. So Breakaway Bingo, what a little throwback that is. Either way, we're almost at the foot of the descent, and Primož Roglic is continuing to press the brakes, both metaphorically and physically, to ensure that Parry-Pantra and Martinez get back to him. Because Roglic does not want to do this whole valley road alone. La Plagne, it is absolutely tipping down on that time. And Roglic might just be the first rider to attack it. He's going to wait up for Parry-Pantra and Martinez, but the peloton continuing to press on under UAE. And the motorbike sits in front of Tim Wellens in the peloton and behind Primož Roglic in the breakaway, which I think explains why the peloton is holding the gap to Primož Roglic. So, ASO clearly putting the call in for what they want to happen on this particular stage. And because of the shortened day, with the cow slaughter going on the what was supposed to be the second climb of the day, who will be singing when the cows come home? sorry, too easy. By the time the stage finishes, I'm going to make a bold prediction that is not one of the top 3. But the culling of the cows on the area surrounding the climb means that the stage looks like this, just as a reminder. Reduced to 93.1 kilometres, and we have taken out the Col d'Issez and the Côte d'Henri-sur-Orgine, which means you're left with 3 climbs. 2 of them have been done, and we will soon get to Bourg Saint-Maurice-les-Arcs to begin the Valley Road. And it will be Primož Roglič on his own to start that area in the valley. Meanwhile, UAE Team Emirates have 4 riders alongside Tadej Pogacar that they can use on La Plagne, and it looks like the Emirati team will shut this race down, and Jonas Vingegaard is going to have to do something incredibly special on La Plagne to force the issue. Tim Wellens on the radio for UAE Team Emirates. And continues to do so. He is patrolling this descent with Marc Soler on his wheel. Jonas Vingegaard sat in 4th wheel behind Tadej Pogacar, who sits between Vingegaard and Soler. And a Danish flag is up. One of the monuments on the route. But the stage win is going to go to one of the peloton, you'd expect, unless Primož Roglič can throw something incredibly special out of the bag. In this stage, he's been out front almost all day. Midway through the Col du Pré was when he made his move, closer to the foot, realistically, of the Col du Pré. And Jonas Abrahamsson's attack after the intermediate sprint was brought back, which meant that the attacks opened up again, and Bora, for the 2nd day in a row, have gone on the offensive with Primož Roglič. Roglič takes a gel, 2 gels and a bottle from a soigneur on the side of the road and is stocking his pockets with nourishment ahead of La Plagne. As we head into Bourg Saint-Maurice, Roglič is already there. The peloton will be just entering there now, and the group of Vauquelin after that. Primož Roglič, though, monitoring his time gap to Valentin Parry-Pantra. Lenny Martinez, though, looks over his shoulder after being dropped by the Soudal Quick-Step rider on the descent. And his day is over, so he is not going to win the King of the Mountains classification today. That jersey will likely be handed over to Tadej Pogacar because his teammate Tim Wellens has just reeled Martinez in. And he is forcing the tempo now on this flat valley road. The Belgian national champion, Parry-Pantra, is next up for him. And then it will be fellow Slovenian Primož Roglič. Pogacar catching his countryman and then hitting the nitro button on La Plagne is something that I want to see. Instead, I think it will be Pogacar catching his countryman and letting his teammates pace him to the line as Jonas Vingegaard throws a couple of jabs but cannot land the killer blow. That's the early prediction, but in the end, my initial predictions of Castrillo in the break did not materialise. Roglič, though, is being pelted by the rain at the front of the race, which has suddenly started. It was pelting it down on La Plagne, and it looks to be going down the mountain right now. And Roglic needs a coat ASAP, but cannot get one because the Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe team car is not going to be up there. And this is a problem for Primož Roglic. He's got to get that gap up to a minute from the peloton for the team car to make it to him. But Tim Wellens is insisting on Roglic not having a coat because Wellens is riding hard at the front of this peloton. Oscar Onley gets onto the radio for Picnic PostNL. Florian Lipowitz is sat on his wheel. Onley does have a teammate alongside though, which is going to be useful for the British rider. Onley's teammate is Frank Vandenbroek, so he's going to be useful on this valley road. Might be a little less useful once the road goes uphill and UAE use their best climbers, Narvaez, Soler, Yates, to rip things apart. Tobias Harland Johannesson with a gel hanging from his mouth right now. His team have done the work to distance Kevin Vorkala, and now UAE are doing that as well, but that is not in their mind. In their mind is the stage win, and the stage winner of yesterday, Ben O'Connor, is right at the back of this yellow jersey group. Just sat on the wheel for now of Gregor Milberger, who thrives on these shortened stages. Last one, of course, in 2019 when he put on a masterclass for Bora-Hansgrohe in how to ride as a domestique. In the same way that the streets won't forget Marc Padun's Dauphiné win on La Plagne, the streets will not forget 2019 Gregor Milberger. Tim Wellens, though, is shutting this one down very, very quickly. Primož Roglic is watching his gap disappear in front of his eyes. 30 seconds now separate Roglic from the yellow jersey group. And Victor Campenaerts is not happy with these conditions. Right now would be the time to go for the sunglasses. Simon Yates certainly has gone for that. But Jonas Vingegaard is slotting onto the wheel of Tadej Pogacar and looks fairly comfortable. He's got his layers on. Pogacar, I can't really see. But Campenaerts and Simon Yates are in the group. For Jonas Vingegaard, meanwhile, the green jersey sits 14 minutes down and is still on the descent of the Col de Roselon. That is where the green jersey will gain the time. The sprinters are much quicker going downhill than Primož Roglic is because of the sheer weight of the riders. There was a TJ Van Garderen interview from a while ago where he said some of the hardest days on the bike have not been suffering in the mountains. They've been when I've been doing really badly and in with the gruppetto and having to follow sprinters down the descent as a lightweight climber because they send it. If anything, putting a camera on the gruppetto on a downhill would be as entertaining as putting a camera on Primož Roglic getting rained on right now at the front of the race, and it's UAE raining on his parade and Tim Wellens that is leading the showers. Wellens, though, pressing on, followed by Marc Soler. And with 20 seconds in hand, Primož Roglic is probably going to watch this gap disappear before the foot of La Plagne. The pace of Tim Wellens is difficult for Lenny Martinez to hold on. Bruno Almirai, though, after being in the breakaway, similar to Martinez, but dropping out much earlier in the group of Foss and Campenaerts, looks fine. Tobias Foss as well is in that yellow jersey group, so you've got a couple of breakaway remnants, should I say. That's a difficult one to verbalise. So a couple of riders who were in that chase group including Ina Rubio as well, are sat in the yellow jersey group. Rubio does have a teammate in Gregor Mühlberger, but Tim Wellens is doing a massive ride at the moment. And you might as well, because this is the last possible mountain stage for Jonas Vingegaard to gain serious time on Tadej Pogacar. You've got Paris afterwards, which might just be raced as a procession. The Montmartre climb would have something to say about it though, but I think the gaps on GC will be too large, certainly between the top two. We might see an incredible battle though on the final stage between Oscar Onley and Florian Lipowitz. But Primož Roglič has 25 kilometres of his effort remaining. He's got 15 seconds just over on the yellow jersey group, with Kevin Vauquelin's group very far down the road now. I've heard barely anything from the race radio because it is so unintelligible today. And I think the weather has a part to play in that because it is raining and raining hard. 5 kilometres until we get to La Plagne though. And Primož Roglič remains at the front. Possibly the most talented rider we've seen in the morning breakaway at this Tour de France is Primož Roglič, because his palmarès is littered with achievements. Where to start but the Vuelta a España? 4 times winner overall, 15 stage wins in the Spanish Grand Tour. He's also won the Giro d'Italia in 2023 in dramatic circumstances indeed. That time trial where he had the mechanical fault and we thought that Geraint Thomas was going to keep the pink jersey, but Roglič at the last taking it on that time trial in 2023. Won his fair share of classics too, most notably the Liège-Bastogne-Liège back in 2020, and is a one-week racer as well. Tirreno Adriatico 2019-2023, Critérium du Dauphiné 2022 and 2024, Tour de Romandie 2018-2019, Itzulia Basque Country 18 and 21, Volta Catalunya 23 and 25, and the 2022 Paris-Nice. Then we get to his stage honours, of course 15 stages at the Vuelta a España. His most recent ones came last year, winning 3 stages, stage 4, 8 and 19 of the race. Of course, won that 20th stage time trial at the Giro d'Italia to take pink away from Geraint Thomas in 2023, and was a prolific winner on the Tour de France. Won in 2020, as well as taking his first Grand Tour win at the Tour de France in 2017. And also, if you remember, won to Laurent in 2018 ahead of Geraint Thomas as well. So it's enjoyed his fair share of battles with the Brit on Ineos Grenadiers and the veteran of the peloton. This year though, at Bull Bora-Hansgrohe, his best results have come in Catalunya, winning 2 stages there, and the overall classification, as well as the points and the mountains jersey, which Tadej Pogacar is not going to quite do at this Tour de France. Did wear the pink jersey at the Giro d'Italia, just for the one stage though, after taking it on the individual time trial at stage 2. He had to DNF though after 16 stages and could not finish the Giro this year. So as a result, the Tour de France was his objective, and he currently sits 5th overall at 12 minutes and 49 seconds down. Best result so far of 3rd on the Peyregude time trial. His best result on a road stage has been 7th in yesterday's stage to the Col de la Loze. So he is growing into this race and is especially good in the 3rd week. But Roglič, a rider with a fantastic palmarès. 4 Giro d'Italia stage wins, 3 Tour de France stage wins, and just the 15 Vuelta a España stages in his pocket. Either way, he is not going to win on La Plagne because he is getting reeled in very quickly by the peloton, who are about to make the catch. Roglič almost waiting to be caught at this point. But Decathlon Edge Desert, with plenty of riders in the group, according to PCS. They've got Gal, Armirai, Berthet, Paripantra and Stotson, all capable mountain riders on their day. And if they are on good form, then Felix Gal can really attack this one and put the likes of Primoz Roglic into difficulty. Gal, pretty secured in his 6th position, will be wanting a little bit more from it though, as Primoz Roglic does get caught by Tim Wellens. A little word and a wave from Tim Wellens to Primoz Roglic as they go past the Basilique Saint-Martin. Lovely building and a lovely performance from UAE Team Emirates so far. If you're Tadej Pogacar, you've had a free ride all day in the wheels of your teammates and in the wheels of the Uno X riders who've briefly helped you out by attempting to drop Kevin Vauquelin, who is still dangling off the rear of what is now the leading group. 1 minute and 37 seconds separate Vauquelin and his group to the yellow jersey. And that group of the yellow jersey is about to begin La Plagne. They will enter the foot of a climb that is steeped in history at the Tour de France, but the most recent history on it was created by Marc Padun in the Dauphiné, winning stage 7 of that race. 7.2% average gradient, 19.1 kilometre climb, and we are at the foot with Tim Wellens. The road will go uphill very soon, and the climb proper will begin. And this is the battleground for the final mountain stage of this tour. The final chance for Jonas Vingegaard to attempt to settle the score with Tadej Pogacar. In the end, I don't think he'll do it enough, but can he take a brief moral victory over the Slovenian at the top of this climb? We will find out in 19 kilometres, because we're underway and Tim Wellens takes the peloton onto La Plagne. Jonathan Narvaez sat second wheel. They're not going to lead this one out immediately, are they? Like they did on Autocam to blow the race apart to begin with. Will they top and tail the mountain stages with dominant performances? UAE Team Emirates have put themselves in the position to do that right now, and Tim Wellens is putting everybody in the hurt zone. Jonathan Narvaez sat second wheel, then Tadej Pogacar, then Jonas Vingegaard in the King of the Mountains polka dot jersey. Adam Yates has dropped a little bit further back in the peloton, just monitoring his brother Simon Yates and Victor Campenaerts, seeing how they're doing. But Decathlon Age Desert have multiple riders up there, and more riders are being distanced. It would be useful to have a camera motorbike at the back, and indeed they do, because Primoz Roglic has been dropped. So that is Roglic out of the GC picture. Tobias Foss has gone as well, and Bull Bora-Hansgrohe have lost one of their men. So Roglic could not do any more for Florian Lipowitz, who is now well and truly on his own in this fight. He's got Alexander Vlasov with him, but he can only act as a teammate. He cannot act as a second GC rider in the same way that Roglic can for Oscar Onley to watch. But UAE Team Emirates have shut this one down on Primoz Roglic. It's like what we've been seeing in years past when Roglic was on Visma Lease-A-Bike, or at the time Jumbo Visma, and UAE Team Emirates were monitoring him then. This time, UAE Team Emirates have accidentally done so because they are not interested in Primoz Roglic's movements. They are only interested in the stage win. And the stage win is not going to Gregor Mühlberger, and it's not going to Alexander Vlasov, who are out of the back of the peloton, as is Ben O'Connor right now. And so is Bruno Armirai. Armirai gone too. And Lenny Martinez has been distanced as well. So the white jersey is now officially on his own. Roglic has gone, Alexander Vlasov has gone. Onley versus Lipowitz. And Onley has a teammate still in Frank Vandenbroek. I've not seen him be dropped. One Picnic PostNL rider off the back that will be Frank van den Broek. And then next will be Oscar Onley, but Van den Broek is continuing to press on. Jonathan Narvaez takes over from Tim Wellens, who has had enough, and Frank van den Broek is slowly moving back in the peloton. So Oscar Onley is losing his final man, and it will be one-on-one on La Plagne. Meanwhile, Victor Campenaerts is off the back, Tim Wellens off the rear too. So both UAE Team Emirates and Visma Lease-A-Bike lose a teammate at the same time. While that's going on, Callum Strootsen heading to the front to force the tempo for Decathlon Desert. Is this a statement of intent from Felix Gall? How good is the Austrian feeling? He's got Paris-Pantra and Berthet for company. But Yates has been dropped as well. So it's just Jonathan Narvaez now with Tadej Pogacar. And maybe that was a false pace being set by the Ecuadorian national champion that Felix Gall is not happy with. Callum Strootsen, though, the Australian, outclimbing his countryman Ben O'Connor on today's stage, and has had some good climbing performances in the past. One of multiple Decathlon Desert riders in this group. Felix Gall is there. Aurélien Paris-Pantra is there. His brother Valentin is clinging on to the back of this, what I'm going to call the peloton. But Strootsen is forcing the tempo now on the early slopes of La Plagne. Narvaez sat second wheel. And this is the time to be further back. Florian Lipowitz is on the wheel of Oscar Onley, who is in turn on the wheel of Simon Yates. The two Brits locked together, with the white jersey on the wheel of the rider he needs to mark. Forward comes Aurélien Paris-Pantra. Felix Gall sat in the wheel, and this is Gall making a serious move now. He is looking to light things up on La Plagne, and perhaps he has the stage win in sight, as well as Tadej Pogacar. Tim Wellens is just getting onto the rear again, so that tells you the speed in the group. Paris-Pantra takes over from Callum Strootsen. So is this Strootsen saying he's on a good day, Paris-Pantra saying he's about to blow, or Felix Gall urging an increase in tempo? Gall slots into third wheel, Pogacar sits fourth. But Decathlon Desert want an increase in tempo. And Aurélien Paris-Pantra is delivering it at the moment. Callum Strootsen there with him. And Felix Gall there too. Pogacar and Jonathan Narvaez. And then comes Jonas Vingegaard with his domestique, Simon Yates. But Felix Gall will be looking to pull the trigger maybe on this climb. Aurélien Paris-Pantra is burying himself for the services of the Austrian. Other riders in this group, Tobias Harland Johannesson, Ben Healy is there. Frank van den Broek is continuing to press on at the back of this group. So a bit of moral support, if anything, for Oscar Onley, that he's still got one teammate in the group. Also there is Thymen Arensman for Ineos Grenadiers. Once again having a good ride on these hard stages in the mountains. But Gall, I think, is solely interested in stage honours here. Very good rider in the third week of a Grand Tour, and is once again showing it at the front of the yellow jersey group. Frank van den Broek glued to the wheel of Dutchman, not Tobias Harland Johannesson. Thymen Arensman, that was the T I was looking for. But Paris-Pantra is gritting his teeth and going for it. Callum Strootsen sat second wheel. Looks much more in control of his effort on the wheel of Aurélien Paris-Pantra, who is giving it his all. Decathlon Desert then, riding Van Rysels and riding Tim Wellens off of the wheels at the moment. Wellens has once again gone pop under the pressure of Paris-Pantra. And Callum Strootsen looks like he's going to take over imminently. Paris-Pantra giving everything he possibly has, emptying the tank on La Plagne, and there's 16 kilometres of this torrid climb remaining. Paris-Pantra's had enough, he pulls off, and it's back to Callum Strootsen to pace. Felix Gall down to his last man then. He has lost Clement Berthet. Now he has lost Aurélien Paris-Pantra. Bruno Armirail was in the breakaway and spent a brief time in the yellow jersey group on the lower slopes, but now, under the pressure of Paris-Pantra and Strotzen, Gal looks set to pull the trigger. Paris-Pantra now off the back, so that's yet another rider off of the rear of this leading group, which is now down to just 13 riders. And it's Callum Strotzen that is forcing the tempo. Strotzen not opposed to a fantastic performance here and there in a Grand Tour. This is yet another big performance from Callum Strotzen in what is now his 8th Grand Tour, his first Tour de France, having done 3 Giro d'Italia and 4 Vuelta a España races. But Narvaez, on the wheel of Pogacar, perhaps found out by Felix Gall and Decathlon Age Desert for not putting in a hard enough tempo. And it's Callum Strotzen who is shedding riders in the yellow jersey group and putting more time into Kevin Vauquelin. Primoz Roglic being dropped as well is a good sign for Felix Gall, because if I bring up the classifications again, that's the other classifications, but here is the general classification. Gall needs a lot of time on Roglic, but the best he can do is try, and he is certainly doing that now, sending his riders to the front. Decathlon say, Pogacar is in your wheel, you look magnificent, boys, good job. So that was Decathlon on the radio. That would have been when Paris-Pantra was still in the group. But right now it's Callum Strotzen that is monitoring things right now. Hasn't really had the opportunity to take his own results in his career. Best results have come last year in the 1-week races. 7th at the Tour de Hungary in 2024 and 8th at the Tour of Slovenia. But individuals are now being read out in this group, and Jonathan Narvaez is beginning to be found out in this group. Pogacar might be down to just himself very shortly, because the Ecuadorian national champion is being put under pressure by Callum Strotzen and the Age Desert Decathlon team. Frank van den Broek is continuing to hold on though, so Oscar Onley still has a man advantage on Florian Lipowitz. How long will he have that man advantage is the question that I'm asking. Because Van den Broek looks in trouble and has looked in trouble for a while. Jonathan Narvaez, though, looks like he's about to drop imminently. Under the pressure of Callum Strotzen, who pulls over, and Felix Gall now presses shoot. Off he goes in search of perhaps a stage win, perhaps some time on Primoz Roglic, but this is the move that Gall is making. It's not a ridiculously quick acceleration. Pogacar and Vingegaard snap onto it immediately, but Felix Gall is putting everybody under pressure. Paris-Pantra dropped, Simon Yates dropped, Frank van den Broek now dropped, Oscar Onley sticking to the wheel of Jonas Vingegaard, with Florian Lipowitz on the wheel of the Brit. Meanwhile, Pogacar at the front of the race, looking to follow Felix Gall, who is setting tempo at the moment. Thymen Arensman now looks to go on the right-hand side of the road. Pogacar went to accelerate to follow it and decides against it. So Thymen Arensman taking advantage of his poor GC position compared to everybody else in this breakaway and goes in search of the stage win, but Pogacar says absolutely not, Thymen. Off he goes, attacking in the peloton with 14 kilometres of La Plagne remaining. In the rain, Jonas Vingegaard in the King of the Mountains jersey can follow for now and is sat comfortably in his saddle as Pogacar presses the accelerator. This is the exact opposite of what we've been seeing across this Tour de France. Pogacar forcing the issue, Jonas Vingegaard in the saddle responding. Pogacar looks behind, realises Vingegaard's on his wheel and understands the task ahead of him. Looks behind once more, sees Arensman has been comfortably distanced by that acceleration and knows once again that it's a battle between him and Jonas Vingegaard for stage honours on a mythical climb. The all category La Plagne. Pogacar has ridden everybody off the wheel bar Jonas Vingegaard. And those two will just mark each other constantly. Meanwhile, Onley will mark Lipowitz and vice versa, monitoring each other. But this is the opportunity for Felix Gall perhaps to get across, tag on to the rear of that trio. And he's trying to take that opportunity right now, but it's Ben Healy that's looking to respond, and he's dragging Oscar Onley, Florian Lipowitz and Tobias Harlan Johannesson with him. Healy chasing Felix Gall, who is in turn chasing Thymen Arensman, who sits between these two riders, gets up to Pogacar and Vingegaard and attacks once more. Pogacar scrunches his nose at it, kind of scowls at Thymen Arensman for making the move. But it is grinta being shown by Arensman. And flamboyance from the Dutch rider. Pogacar says, no thank you, and closes him down. Not this time. I've already let you win a stage before. You're not going to win one on this occasion because I want the final mountain stage, says Pogacar. But he looks around, sees Jonas Vingegaard, and is trying to juggle two race situations at once. Pogacar wants the stage win, but he also is monitoring Jonas Vingegaard. But great to see Pogacar doing such attacking racing with 14 kilometres of La Plagne remaining, and already putting the pressure on, and is willing to perhaps lose the stage to give us a little bit of entertainment, so I really appreciate this from Tadej Pogacar. And Thymen Arensman is doing a very good ride indeed to stick with them. Arensman, Pogacar, Vingegaard. The Arensman family will be taking screenshots of this right now. Arensman flicks his elbow, looking for Pogacar to go through. Pogacar, initially I thought declined, but eventually accepts the request. And you've now got a time gap to Felix Gall, who is looking to get back. Off he goes again, Thymen Arensman. And Vingegaard and Pogacar look at each other and let the Ineos Grenadiers rider go. Up the road goes Arensman then. Third time lucky for the Dutchman. And Felix Gall is at 15 seconds behind Thymen Arensman and Pogacar and Jonas. Meanwhile, the white jersey sits around 8 seconds behind Felix Gall. Arensman wants the stage and has tried 3 times to try and get it. This time he puts himself in a position to possibly take the stage win. But Pogacar riding tempo now with Jonas Vingegaard on his wheel, and he has opened this race up. All other domestiques are far down the road now. Narvaez, Pogacar's last man, has been dropped. Simon Yates, Jonas Vingegaard's last man, has been dropped. Which means it is just the GC competitors towards the front of affairs on La Plagne. 12.5 kilometres of the stage remain. 10 seconds is the advantage of Arensman over Pogacar, who rides at the front with Jonas Vingegaard sat on his wheel. Vingegaard, you'd think, would want to make a move soon to try and put Pogacar under pressure and go on the offensive on his own. He's got nothing to lose, really, with Florian Lipowitz already behind in the white jersey. But he might have in the back of his mind Simon Yates, who is making it back to the Lipowitz group, which is now led by Frank Vandenbroek, who is doing a massive ride for Oscar Onley. We talked about Picnic not having the team, or critics talked about Picnic not having the team. Frank van den Broek showing his worth in this final week of the Tour and is setting up Oscar Onley, perhaps for an acceleration, to put Florian Lipowitz under pressure. But Van den Broek is emptying himself in the services of Oscar Onley. Meanwhile, Thymen Arensman, fellow Dutchman, is heading off up the road in search of the stage win. Pogacar remains on the front, Jonas Vingegaard stuck to the wheel of Tadej. Pogacar around the latest of the switchbacks, and the Danish helmet of Jonas Vingegaard will be haunting him at the moment. I'm sure he won't mind, to be honest with you. He's already got 4 minutes and 26 of an advantage. But he might have in the back of his mind a little bit of regret for opening the race a little bit too early. Meanwhile, Felix Gall is making his way back. He has moved himself into the net top 5 now that Roglic is well over 2 minutes behind him. So the advantage that Gall has gained has now moved him into 5th in the general virtual classification. But Frank van den Broek is reeling him in. He's got Oscar Onley on his wheel, followed by Florian Lipowitz, followed by Ben Healy with Tobias Harlan Johannesson in the chasing group of the white jersey. Arensman on his own, though, is away and gone at the front of the race. Out of the eye line of Pogacar and Vingegaard, who will once again be focusing on each other. And the beneficiary from all these games being played on the road is Thymen Arensman. Felix Gall looks set to catch Pogacar and Vingegaard, if only for a brief time, because both of those riders have it in the tank to attack away again, I think. Meanwhile, Frank van den Broek looking good at the front of the white jersey group. 11.2 kilometres to go. 21 seconds Arensman has on the yellow jersey, which is 7 seconds ahead of Felix Gall, although it doesn't look like that at all as motorbikes are being pulled from the gap. Frank van den Broek, though, rocking from side to side and suffering in the service of Oscar Onley, who gets into the drops. I wonder whether he's preparing an attack for the time that Frank van den Broek is done. Frank van den Broek's turn is finished then, and Oscar Onley sets his own tempo at the front of the race. Florian Lipowitz locks in, as does Tobias Harlan Johannesson and Ben Healy, who get out of the saddle and onto the wheel of Florian Lipowitz. The white jersey monitoring Oscar Onley, and Frank van den Broek is finished. So Felix Gall now riding away. Pogacar trying to get onto the wheel of the Austrian, who's opened up a little bit of daylight between his back wheel and Pogacar's front, so the Slovenian shuts that one down. And this group is now 30 seconds behind Thymen Arensman. Gall has something to ride for, and that is Roglic dropping out of the top 5 in the general classification. He is going to finish this tour, looking at it, but he's going to finish this tour outside the top 5. Gall is riding his own race right now, as he mentioned in his pre-race interview that we brought up on the stream. But Thymen Arensman will also be riding for the stage win on his own at the front of the race. Both Gall and Arensman doing a time trial to the line at this point. Arensman's got 30 seconds advantage on the group of Gall, which now includes the yellow jersey and the polka dot jersey. And they'll be going beyond the clouds and to the summit of Plagne, which is where this stage will end. Roglic over 4 minutes down now on Thymen Arensman. He's thrown the kitchen sink at the stage and in the end is going to lose positions, but Ineos Grenadiers are on the radio to Thymen Arensman. They say, "This is your place here, Thymen, fighting with these guys. It's all alright. You're really good. You are so strong, mate." And indeed he is, because he's getting rid of Felix Gall and the rest at the moment. He's made multiple attacks on Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. And he's got 170 metres on the yellow jersey group. But I do fear that Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard have plenty in the tank. Bit of support for Felix Gall on the side of the road. But Thymen Arensman is tapping out his tempo at the front of the race. Looking at his head unit right now. And on his day, Arensman is an elite climber that can mix it with the best. Frank van den Broek's gone. Valentin Parry-Pantra is the same. Simon Yates trying to make his way back to this group. I don't think he'll be able to, though. And the moment that he knows he can't, Jonas Vingegaard will be given free leash to go ahead and attack Tadej Pogacar and go all in for the victory of the Tour de France, which at the moment looks destined to go to the Slovenian, who is sitting on Felix Gall. Gall doing his own tempo, Pogacar being the beneficiary, sat second wheel, Jonas Vingegaard in third. And this does feel like another storm is due. And we're waiting for Pogacar to drop some thunder, or Vingegaard to drop some lightning. Through the Slovenian flags they go. They'll be disappointed with the performance of Roglic. They'll be looking down the road for their man, but Pogacar in the yellow jersey is what they want to see. Gall pacing though, which means that Onley is in trouble, because Lipowitz has a rider that he knows he can sit on in Felix Gall. Vauquelin has now overtaken Roglic on the road. So Kevin Vauquelin has caught and passed Primoz Roglic, who has blown up on this climb, and I think has had enough of the stage. You'd think eventually Gall would get the radio call through that he's gained enough time on Primoz Roglic to start to ride a different race than the time trial and tempo riding that he's doing at the front of the yellow jersey group right now. Because it's not putting anybody under pressure, not that I can see at least. Arensman, though, is putting himself as hard into the red as he can go. The winner of stage 14, it was Tim Wellens of UAE Team Emirates that won the stage afterwards. And it's, I think, a toss-up between him and UAE Team Emirates again, but this time with Tadej Pogacar looking to take stage glory. Arensman tapping out a tempo on his Pinarello. Meanwhile, Ben Healy letting the wheel go ever so slightly of Tobias Harland Johannesson, but looks in control of his own effort, the former Irish national champion. And in the pink jersey of the VF Education Easy Post is monitoring the wheel of Tobias Harland Johannesson, who is the rider that sits ahead of him in the general classification. Now we're about to get the radio through from Decathlonage Desert, who say we have to take more than 3 minutes. We need to take more than 3 minutes on Roglic to be comfortable. Come on, Felix. And he's clearly just had the radio message through that he's taken more than 3 minutes, because Roglic is 4.5 minutes down on this group in particular. So Gall is now happy with his advantage. And Pogacar takes over at the front of the race. Now, will this cause the gap to Arensman to grow? At the moment, it looks as if so, by a couple of seconds, just easing out. But Pogacar, Vingegaard, Onley, Lipowitz, Johannesson, Gall and Healy are the 7 riders in the second group on the road. Pogacar looks over his shoulder at Jonas Vingegaard, who pulls a straight face. A poker face, if you will. Not seeing any weakness in Jonas Vingegaard as of now, but not seeing any weakness in Pogacar either. As he goes past more and more Slovenian flags, there will be more Slovenian flags the further you enter the Alps. Less in the Pyrenees, of course, because it's further away from Slovenia. But this mountain range is closer to home for Tadej Pogacar. And he's 8.2 kilometres away from completing the final mountain stage of this Tour de France. A shortened day with 2 climbs taken off of the menu entirely. Bad sign for Lenny Martinez, good sign for Pogacar and his King of the Mountains hopes that are in his hands at this point, but I don't think he will care about the polka dot jersey that he will pull on at the end of the stage. I think he cares more about the polka dot jersey that is sat on his wheel in Jonas Vingegaard. Pogacar, though, settling to a certain wattage. Onley and Lipowitz in the battle for the podium, sat 3rd and 4th in this group. And then Johannesson, Gal and Healy along for the ride and getting a front row seat to what we're about to witness on La Plagne. And I hope we're about to witness something. I can't really hack another Col de la Loze where the square root of nothing happens. Admittedly, though, we did see Pogacar and Vingegaard throw jabs and Oscar Onley follow. But I am expecting more, and I am doing the same on this stage. After all we've seen with Roglic up the road, UAE Team Emirates controlling as hard as they possibly can. Clearly Tadej Pogacar has put the call through saying he wants the stage win early on in this stage. Does he still have it on this final climb? 7.6 to go. 35 seconds between the yellow jersey group and Thymen Arensman in Group 2. Pogacar continuing to turn the pedals. And he's got Jonas Vingegaard for company. Not only that, but 5 other riders in this group, eager to take advantage if he shows any sign of weakness. But Thymen Arensman is not showing weakness at all at the moment. He mentioned in his interview at the end of stage 14 that he needed 3.5 to 4 minutes of an advantage at the foot of the final climb so that he knew he'd win. At the moment, he's only opened it to 35 seconds. And Arensman right now is getting the slow-mo montage. But this is a ride from Arensman that is putting him in the shop window for the Ineos Grenadiers. Although I wonder how long it will be before we see an attack from Pogacar or Jonas Vingegaard. 37 seconds between Arensman and the yellow jersey, with 7 kilometres of the stage remaining. Vingegaard's got to make a move soon, you'd think, if he wants to put serious time into Tadej Pogacar and keep his yellow jersey hopes alive. And Pogacar is actually on the offensive now. Onley follows. Lipowitz is letting the wheel go of the Scotsman and is preferring to do his own tempo, but Pogacar increases the pace. Lipowitz decides against following, but Jonas Vingegaard is in the wheel with Oscar Onley in third wheel. Pogacar looks over his shoulder, sees 4 riders now in this train as Florian Lipowitz sits on the wheel of Onley. So Lipowitz didn't need to make the acceleration, but has ridden himself across the gap. This acceleration, however, has dropped Felix Gall and Tobias Harland Johannesson and dispatched of Ben Healy, who is much further down the road than those two. But Gall and Johannesson gone, which means the top 4 in the general classification are now the 4 in the chasing group. And the time gap goes down to 30 seconds again. Thymen Arensman possibly looking over his shoulder a bit worried, because Pogacar, without really expending extreme amounts of effort, took 5 to 10 seconds out of him in one swoop there. And with 6.5 kilometers to go, both Onley and Lipowitz will possibly seek encouragement. Lipowitz might be worried that Onley followed the moves, but he will certainly believe in himself after bridging that gap to the leading trio of Pogacar, Vingegaard and Oscar Onley. Onley continues to sit on Jonas Vingegaard, and that might be the wheel to choose for now. But 6.3 to go for Thymen Arensman. The chasing group only a couple of 100 metres behind. Meanwhile, Vauquelin has paced his effort well. He's only at 4 minutes 24 down and will be retaining his top 10 space. He lost a position, of course, to Felix Gall and looks set to lose a position to Tobias Harlan Johannesson, but should be able to hold off Ben Healy, as Roglic is now a further 2 minutes behind Kevin Vauquelin's group. But Thymen Arensman now has 6 kilometres of his effort remaining. He is going at a steady tempo. Pogacar keeps lifting and then easing off. And the repeated accelerations are going to play into the hands of Arensman, who can gradually increase this gap. It tips above 30 seconds again for Thymen Arensman. And he's just got to get his head down and make sure he gets to that line without any sight of either of the distinctive jerseys, whether that be yellow, polka dots or white, in his rearview mirror. Arensman is in control of his effort right now. Vingegaard, Lipowitz and Onley are all looking at Pogacar as the controller of their effort. Meanwhile, Vauquelin has the Arkea B&B Hotels car for company and is soloing up this climb now. So it is just Vauquelin on the road for Arkea B&B Hotels, who is caught and past Primož Roglic on the road, but is riding his own race right now. He was interested in a move to Ineos, which is slightly falling through after the whole David Rosman situation. But it's an Ineos Grenadiers rider at the front of the race, taking control of the situation at the moment. And it's Thymen Arensman who is the rider that is doing that. Pogacar, Vingegaard, Lipowitz and Onley in Group 2. Healy, Gall and Johannesson locked together in the third group on the road. But Vauquelin is picking off individual riders one at a time who are being dropped on this climb. The likes of Frank van den Broek, who will have emptied the tank, Aurélien Paris-Pantra and others for teammates. He will be dropping one by one, and that will give him persistent hope going up La Plagne. It may not be the Frenchman with Pogacar, Vingegaard, Lipowitz and Onley, but it's going to be little molecules of hope that Vauquelin will be picking up one by one on the road. Pogacar has one target in mind though, and that is Thymen Arensman and the stage win. 25 seconds separate Pogacar from the Dutchman, and it just feels a little bit inevitable that Pogacar has the stage in his hands. Jonas Vingegaard is going to have to make a move. This is the third time I've said this now. But Vingegaard's got to try something. He's got to risk it all if he wants and believes that this Tour de France is still on. Pogacar looks like he's riding within himself though, almost awaiting an attack. The Visma Lease-A-Bike team car, sat behind UAE Team Emirates' team car right now, surely must be plotting something for Jonas Vingegaard to do. But right now, the polka dot jersey has made no move whatsoever. Thymen Arensman, on the other hand, has made 3 accelerations, and it's the third one that's broken the elastic. He's got himself 26 seconds of an advantage on the road, to the yellow jersey. But he will be seeing both Pogacar and Vingegaard as his main threats. Lipowitz and Onley should be dropped by those two if the tempo increases. But Onley we've seen follow the attack of Pogacar, the latest one that he threw. Onley and Lipowitz look like they're riding comfortably in the wheels right now. But Pogacar at the moment remaining reserved. They are situated almost in GC order. Pogacar, Vingegaard, Onley, Lipowitz. Will they be in that order in the general classification at the end of the stage though? Felix Gall is pushing on in Group 3, comfortably distanced by the 4 chasers, but Ben Healy being put into a little bit of difficulty. Tobias Harland Johannesson is holding the wheel as the Norwegian, as Thymen Arensman takes the combativity award, which is a questionable decision, I'll say that. I'd have given it to Roglic, but whatever. As a consolation prize, if nothing else, from the day. But there we are. Thymen Arensman takes combativity. Recency bias being shown there, you could argue. But if Arensman takes the win, then he will be more than happy to pocket the combativity award as well. He is not interested in the combativity prize, however, Thymen Arensman. He is only looking 4,300 metres up the mountain at the finish line. Kevin Vauquelin is now with Aurélien Paris-Pantra, who is acting as a domestique for his French... Oh, sorry, not Aurélien Paris-Pantra, Berthet, who is acting as a domestique for the Frenchman. And Healy is distanced. But Healy gone, and Gall is 55 seconds behind Thymen Arensman. He is not closing the gap to the Dutchman. And Pogacar is maintaining it at 25 seconds, which I think is enough if he puts in a serious effort to get to the wheel of Thymen Arensman. Ineos Grenadiers already have a stage win courtesy of Arensman. That came on stage 14. And on stage 19, it looks like it's Ceteris Paribus in the chase group. Pogacar looking comfortable. Vingegaard getting out of the saddle, perhaps preparing something, hopefully preparing something for the good of the entertainment of the race. But this feels like Arensman is going to get reeled in. And part of the reason he's going to get reeled in is because Jonas Vingegaard, he has to try something. It is absolutely necessary for Jonas Vingegaard to try something, and at some point, Onley has to go himself for any chance at the podium. Because at the moment, Lipowitz is having a free ride to maintain his podium position. Onley's going to have to blink at some point. Jonas Vingegaard is not doing that for him right now. Onley needs 22 seconds, of course. And at the moment, that is the gap between Pogacar and Thymen Arensman. Onley doesn't look too comfortable right now, starting to grimace under the pace of Pogacar, who looks to just be lifting the tempo watt by watt. And Florian Lipowitz doesn't look too good on the wheel either. Jonas Vingegaard looks like he can hold this tempo, but is starting to rock the shoulders. Clement Berthet has brought Kevin Vauquelin to Harold Tejada and Sergio Higuita of Astana. And that might be Mühlberger or Aina Rubio. I don't know which one. Certainly a Movistar rider alongside the two Astana Colombians. But Thymen Arensman is away at the front. An attack behind, though, would close the gap drastically. Arensman has 3 kilometres of his effort remaining to hold off all of the GC competitors for an incredibly surprising victory against all odds, you'd think. Who would have thought Thymen Arensman, while Tim Wellens was pacing at the front and bringing back Primoz Roglic, who would have thought Thymen Arensman would have been the big beneficiary? Pogacar and Vingegaard heading through the French fans who have been given a couple of bobbleheads of Decathlon Desert riders. But Pogacar is continuing to set the pace. Lipowitz, Onley and Vingegaard have yet to blink and have yet to show any weakness on the wheel of Pogacar. Thymen Arensman sits 20 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group, and with 2.5 kilometres to go, Arensman is trying his best to ride himself to a second stage win on this Tour de France. Meanwhile, Felix Gall and Tobias Harlan Johannesson have now dropped Healy for good, and they sit 45 seconds behind the group of the yellow jersey, which has to explode at some point, because Onley needs to make a move, and so does Jonas Vingegaard. Vingegaard has left it so late if he wants to try and crack Pogacar. I think he's just resigned to defeat unless he does anything in the next couple of 100 metres. Thymen Arensman has 18 seconds now with 2.3 kilometres to go, and the stage win is within Pogacar and Vingegaard's grasp. Arensman knows that he's got to dig in and put in the pace, but Oscar Onley is starting to feel the effects of Pogacar's tempo. He is beginning to be dropped off the rear wheel of Florian Lipowitz, who've moved himself up into third, and onto the wheel of Jonas Vingegaard. Onley fighting with the bike to stay with Lipowitz, but this looks like third place is being decided on the road, and it's Oscar Onley that's starting to crack. Onley showing the first signs of weakness between him and Florian Lipowitz. But he gets to the wheel. Onley with a wobble, but Florian Lipowitz might sense some weakness in that, and we've seen how aggressive Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe have been on strategy. It might be time for Florian Lipowitz to pull the trigger for good and try and put the final nail in the coffin for Oscar Onley's top 3 hopes. He's going to be very pleased with his performance throughout this Tour de France, but it looks like the podium could be a step too far for Oscar Onley. Lipowitz, I thought, was heading forward. He looks over his shoulder, and he might just head forward now. Gets onto the radio with the team car, mentions that Oscar Onley has been dropped, and it looks like the legs are tying up for the Scot. Lipowitz sees the opportunity and presses on, and this could be beneficial for Pogacar and Vingegaard in the stage win hopes. Florian Lipowitz looking to put as much time into Oscar Onley as possible, and this in turn is going to reel in Thymen Arensman, who is not going to be happy that Florian Lipowitz is bringing him back. 15 seconds separate the 3 distinctive jerseys and Thymen Arensman, who is going for the stage win, but Florian Lipowitz, riding solely for GC, is distancing Oscar Onley and putting more and more time into the Brit. Lipowitz locking down his podium slot as things stand. Pogacar sat second wheel in the yellow jersey and might just take a free ticket for a stage win if Lipowitz is offering it to him. Right now though, 15 seconds is the gap. Pogacar could close it with an attack, and I think his cannibalistic instincts, you'd reckon he'd want to give it a try. But Pogacar, I think, feels like he can close down 15 seconds if he wants to. But in the end, he might just run out of road because Thymen Arensman is going for his second stage win at this Tour. Vingegaard's going to make a move you'd expect to try and take a moral victory over Tadej Pogacar after Pogacar has stomped all over his GC ambitions at this year's race. But the road steepens now, and round the corner come Lipowitz, Pogacar and Vingegaard. They're going to see Thymen Arensman up the road, and they're going to see the stage win there, dangling like a carrot on a stick. Arensman, though, opening the gap. Underneath the Flamme Rouge goes Florian Lipowitz. And is Pogacar happy to let Lipowitz ride this one in for him? Jonas Vingegaard rocking at the back of this trio. But this stage win is still well and truly in the balance. Thymen Arensman is trying as hard as he possibly can to hold these three off. And he's got 800 metres, less than that even, to the summit of Plagne. We've seen Mark Padun ride these roads in much drier conditions and have more than enough time in the breakaway to sit up and celebrate. Thymen Arensman is going to have none of that. He's going to know that the yellow jersey is about to hit the go button behind him. Jonas Vingegaard locked onto Pogacar's wheel. And then comes Florian Lipowitz at the front of the race. They're going to be able to see Thymen Arensman. Thymen Arensman, though, is going to be able to see them. Florian Lipowitz's acceleration might just have cost Thymen Arensman the stage. 500 metres to go for the Dutchman. And it is so difficult to call. It might be heartbreak for Arensman if Pogacar goes for the stage. We've seen him give Arensman the credits for the stage win on stage 14. And with 400 metres remaining, Pogacar might just run out of road, and Arensman is dangling. Either Pogacar doesn't have it, or he's giving Arensman the win, because it feels like either Vingegaard or Pogacar could have closed it at the snap of a fingers. They are hoping, though, that Thymen Arensman's hoping, should I say, that neither of them snap their fingers, and the legs are beginning to snap for Arensman. A look behind from Thymen Arensman, and he struggles to the line. He might just get there, but Jonas Vingegaard is going to chase him down. Pogacar sat second wheel. Arensman is on his way to a second stage win, I think. He sits up, celebrates, and he just about gets there ahead of Jonas Vingegaard, who takes second position. Pogacar almost knocked over by one of the Tour de France representatives who was trying to help him out, to be fair. But Arensman takes the stage win. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Whatever. I kind of want to see not Florian Lipowitz. I mean, I'd love to have seen Florian Lipowitz win. But realistically, Tadej Pogacar was going to win. And I would have liked to have seen Pogacar at least go for it, rather than sit on the wheel of Jonas Vingegaard. But whatever. What we've got is a Thymen Arensman stage win, and Oscar Onley crosses the line 46 seconds behind Thymen Arensman, who is overcome with emotion. Fair play to Arensman, what a ride. And he has certainly proved himself to be one of the top 5 riders on today's stage. Pogacar doesn't catch him, Jonas Vingegaard doesn't catch him, and once again, Arensman holds off the GC group with a late attack. Felix Gall has distanced Tobias Harland Johannesson and will cross the line in 6th position on the stage, but more importantly, will end the day in the top 5 of the general classification after Primoz Roglic well and truly tied up. Tobias Harland Johannesson will cross the line, and he'll be looking at the gap to Kevin Vauquelin. He's got 2 minutes and 15 seconds to gain on him, and it looks like he'll be doing just that, so rocketing into 7th place overall. And actually, with Roglic being dropped so far behind, you might have been seeing Felix Gall in 5th cross the line overall, and Tobias Harland Johannesson take 6th overall. So Johannesson and Gall make advances. Thymen Arensman takes advantage of Pogacar, Vingegaard and Lipowitz looking at each other, then Lipowitz pacing once Onley was dropped, and Pogacar and Vingegaard playing games. Arensman says thank you very much, I'll take advantage of that, and wins the stage. Pogacar remains the leader in the general classification, Vingegaard takes a brief bit of time, the first we've seen Jonas Vingegaard take time on Tadej Pogacar at this Tour de France, and it comes in the final mountain stage, but it looked like Pogacar had more than enough in the tank there, which is why I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to see the best of Pogacar on this stage, but he doesn't need to show it. So, the final mountain stage of the Tour de France. Again, dare I say it, a slight damp squib, but Thymen Arensman will not care whatsoever. A second stage win at the Tour for him. And what a ride to do it. Either way, I will go and get as many quotes as I possibly can from the aftermath of this stage, which has resulted in Thymen Arensman taking his second stage win at the Tour and Tadej Pogacar retaining the yellow jersey. A 2-second gap was all it was, but Vingegaard and Pogacar ran out of road. Vingegaard second and takes 2 bonus seconds on Tadej Pogacar in the general classification, which is a massive win for Jonas Vingegaard because the gap is now only 4 minutes 24. SMH. Anyway, Pogacar third on the stage will take the 4 bonus seconds, but he won't care. He's lost no time on the road to Jonas Vingegaard, which is exactly what he wanted. Florian Lipowitz 6 seconds down in 4th, with Onley 5th, Gal 6th, and Johannesson 7th, to nail down 4th, 5th, and 6th in the GC, because they haven't updated it actually to include Felix Gal and Tobias Harland Johannesson. But Ben Healy crosses the line 8th. Valentin Paré-Pantra, great ride from the Soudal Quick-Step man, best of the breakaway in 9th, with Simon Yates 10th and Lenny Martinez in 11th. So great ride from both lightweight French climbers. Ending higher than Roglic to La Plagne, who will be ever so slightly disappointed, but I don't think he'll care. I think this Tour has been a bit of a write-off for him anyway, but fair enough, Primož Roglic. There's your stage results, and I will go and find out what everybody had to say ahead of the next stream. Have a great rest of your day. Thymen Arensman certainly will with the stage win. Enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.